Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 288 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where it is no orc, chieftain, or brigand that co-hosts the podcast tonight.
I'm still in command, wielding great powers. Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Shawn Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who once spent his vacation in the Houses of Lamentation, Alan Sisto.
You know, I was intrigued by the whole darkroom experience idea, but I have to admit the mental nudity was just a bit too much.
Well, some people think it's a selling point, so
I suppose. Folks, join us as the Lord of the Nazgul vanishes and returns. And vanishes again in the first of our 3 episodes on the chapter, The Battle of the Pelennor Fields, the 6th chapter in The Return of the King.
And folks, we know some of you are hearing this podcast for the very first time, and to you, we bid a very warm welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading, talking, speculating, and often joking our way through Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
We take a deep dive into the lore, we explore how the story came to be, talk about our favorite themes, and a lot more.
But in a lighthearted and fun way, kind of like a couple of friends chatting at the pub. And we're really glad you've joined us.
Yep, and I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's discussion, since we have Shawn back in the common room, we're going to take advantage. We're going to give him an opportunity to give us yet another fan favorite philology fair.
Well, folks, very soon, I hope, Alan is going to be allowing me to read my favorite speech in the entirety of The Lord of the Rings. And that is the speech that begins when Éowyn says, "Be gone, foul Dwemer-like."
Your check hasn't cleared yet, actually, so... No. I thought we'd try reading every other word, actually. Wouldn't that be interesting? Be gone.
That would be something. Foul.
Dwemer-like.
No, I want to say Dwemer-like.
Oh, because I got to say Dwemer-like? Fine.
Yeah.
Houses.
No, it's terrible. No, it's not.
All right.
Well, regardless of whether my co-host lets me have my way or he doesn't, and I subsequently rage quit this recording session,
of course,
I knew that I couldn't come back here today and not do a little word nerdery on the word Dwemer-like.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do here today. Now, to start, I realize that there is some confusion out there about just exactly whom Éowyn is referring to when she says, "Be gone, foul Dwemer-like."
Yeah, I mean, most people assume she's talking to the Witch King himself, calling him Dwemer-like. But there are a few folks out there who think this is referring to the Witch King's winged steed. Theoden on Snowmane, Éowyn and Merry on Windfola, and the Lord of the Nazgul rides Dwemer-like. I'll take Dwemer-like in the trifecta in the third race. What about you, Shawn?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is there's enough confusion on that we'd like to clear it up for you today.
That's right. And I got to tell you, a quick look at the actual meaning and etymology of the word Dwemer-like should clear things right up for us. I'm going to start, as I often do in these segments, with Ring of Words.
Good place to start.
It is a good start. And it states in its entry for the word that Dwemer-like is an obsolete word which Tolkien has restored to a more robust condition by the application of a little etymological paintwork. I love that turn of phrase.
Man, I love that.
So awesome.
Etymological paintwork. That's great.
Awesome. So the authors of Ring of Words, Peter Gilliver and company, they point out that the Oxford English Dictionary entry for this word is actually listed under a spelling of Demer-like, Demerlayk. So quite different from what we see in the book here. And it is defined in the Oxford English Dictionary as magic, practice of occult art, or jugglery. Now, it's not widely attested. There's only 4 entries that are listed in the OED from between 1275 and 1400, and 2 of those are from the same poem. So it's not like everybody was using this word. Now, Ring of Words notes that by the year 1400, the spelling without a W, this Demer-like spelling, was common, but the earlier 2 entries from 1275, both of which are from Lockham's Brute, which we've talked about before, these entries actually had the W in them, and the word was spelled Dwemerlak, Dweomerlak.
Okay, look, can we stop for a second? Because I'm still really hung up on jugglery. Magic.
Thought you might be.
Occult arts, that all tracks, but jugglery? I mean, the Witch King isn't just a necromancer. He's now, what, like a bard or a circus clown?
And for my next trick.
What?
So it's funny that you should bring that up. While we're here, let's talk about that a little bit, because I did look it up.
I bet you did.
Of course I did. At one time, jugglery actually meant more than just juggling. In the late Middle Ages, jugglery could mean, more broadly, other acts of prestidigitation and illusion, such as might be performed by a bard or, today by a magician. I'm talking about the kind that performs at kids' birthday parties, not the kind that casts real fireballs.
Wait a minute. There's a kind that casts real fireballs? Because I want him at my next birthday party.
Only in games, I guess.
Okay.
But you know what I mean.
If you say so, sir. You're in Texas. Who knows what kind of crazy jugglers
we got some crazy magicians out here. I hired this guy to perform my son's birthday party, and then he just started summoning demons. I don't know. I wasn't expecting it. I want my money back.
Exactly. I see the reviews of that guy in Yelp.
So anyway, no, jugglery could actually also mean real magic and witchcraft, not just pretend. Oh. In fact, a 1552 source cited in the Oxford English Dictionary lists jugglery alongside witchcraft, necromancy, and enchantment. So it was not just tossing balls up in the air and catching them. Apparently it was also
you're doing it
occasionally possessing your child with a lesser devil.
How do you know she's a juggler?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. That is just why I never knew that about jugglery. Also, I also honestly never knew there was a word, jugglery.
How dare you practice such jugglery in front of me, sir?
Oh man,
crazy.
I'm gonna do that next time some guy's throwing up chainsaws. Oh yeah, he went to the school of jugglery. He should be
the school of jugglery and
casting
necromancy.
Fireballs and summoning demons and drawing pentagrams on the ground in people's blood.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Dwemer-like.
Yes, please. My apologies.
It comes from two Old English roots, the first of which is Dwemer, which according to Ring of Words is found in Old English in Ydwymor, which means apparition, phantom, delusion, or witchcraft. And of course, we've actually seen Tolkien use this word Dwemer before, interestingly, always in the language of the Rohirrim. So if you think back to Book 3, Chapter 2, Éomer called Saruman Dwemer crafty, which would mean something like knowledgeable or crafty in the arts of magic and deception.
And jugglery. I'm not letting that go, man. That's too good.
I'm imagining the Voice of Saruman chapter. He just comes out and he's got like 3 Palantiri and he's just juggling them.
3 amateur. He's got 5. All right. Oh, man. So back to
and you want the wands of the 5 wizards, which I am going to juggle right now.
Juggle while they are on fire.
Nonsense, Saruman! Stop this.
My assistant Wormtongue will now come out and
and Wormtongue comes out in like a sequined teddy.
Lord! Whoa! I did not need that image in my mind. Oh gosh!
Are you going to cut me in half now, Master?
Wow. You are back, sir. You are back. All right.
Oh, all right. Let's get back to it. So, Dwemer crafty was one. And then there was the name of the Dwemerberg, which was mentioned in chapter 2 of this book, which you covered not too long ago, which is usually translated as the haunted mountain. So that's kind of going more with that phantom or apparition meaning of Dwemer.
Anytime we mention the haunted mountain, it is obligatory, and you have to sing it with me to sing Grim Grinning Ghosts Come Out to Socialize, right?
Grim Grinning Ghosts Come Out to Socialize.
Yeah. All right. Good job.
Yep. All right. And then finally, there's the name given by the Rohirrim to Lothlorien, which was Dwemerdene, which means literally veil of illusion.
All right. And that's interesting that all of those are in the Rohirric language.
That's right.
Now, old school D&D fans may know the word Dwemer. It's spelled Dweomer from spells like Nahal's Reckless Dwemer. And Ring of Words points out the word Dwemer is used in Dungeons & Dragons and similar fantasy games to mean a magical aura imparted to an enchanted object. Now, the authors wonder why the game designers opted for the Old English spelling instead of one of the spellings used by Tolkien. Now, they suggest that maybe they were reading the Brute, which, I mean, that's possible, and which is where those forms occur. These are the ones that are spelled EO, okay? Also, they could have just come across the old spellings in the OED and liked it because it was a rather more exotic-looking word.
Which it certainly is.
Yeah. I actually have another possible reason why D&D designers wouldn't use the spelling of a word that Tolkien used, and it's the same reason that hobbits in D&D are just called halflings. It's the fear of the law.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I mean, it's kind of similar to the fact that they don't call rogues thieves anymore, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, I guess that's not fear of the law so much as fear of lawsuits from parents who think
angry
they're corrupting
parents.
their kids. Yeah.
You're corrupting my children.
Right.
They're engaging in jugglery.
Yeah. Starts with jugglery.
That's right.
Next thing you know, Belial and Beelzebub are coming up from the lower hells. Anyway, so that gets us through the first part of the word, which is dwemer.
Yeah.
But what about like? Well, as we said just a moment ago, in the Oxford English Dictionary, this is spelled Layk, which Gilliver and Company say is a northern spelling of the Old English suffix lac, Lac, which survives in modern English only in the word wedlock. Now, as it turns out...
Also known as jugglery.
How did you get married? There's got to be a story there, Alan.
All right.
All right. Now, as it turns out, the word lock in wedlock has nothing to do with binding. It's not called wedlock because you're locking two people together. It's actually a suffix that goes back to Old and Middle English that's used to form nouns denoting an action, practice, or state.
Interesting.
The OED says that although like, Layk, or in this case Laik, is cognate with lock in wedlock, the two suffixes actually developed completely separately. Like is derived from Old Norse, which you tend to see in the north of England during the Danelaw, instead of derived directly from Old English like lock. But they do both more or less mean the same thing. Like is glossed in the OED very similarly to lock as a suffix to form nouns of quality.
Okay, so a dwemer-like would be a noun meaning something that has the quality of sorcery, or maybe like the action or state of sorcery.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could think of it as sort of like a thing of sorcery or a product of sorcery or something like that. Excellent. In which case, it is clearly referring to the Witch King himself.
Of course.
The steed is a monstrous creature, yes, but it is something that's natural, at least in the broadest sense. I mean,
well, right, it's a living thing.
It's a living thing. We'll see in just a few minutes that it was bred and raised from, I don't know, a hatchling, a larva, something, but it's organic and it's alive.
Yeah. The thing of sorcery would then be, of course, the undead being riding it, who supposedly cannot be killed by any man. Let's see how well that works out for him, shall we?
We'll see very soon. Now, as for the steed, since we can't call it the dwemer-like, I guess we'll just have to keep calling it the steed.
Now the flying talking donkey. Tomorrow he's making waffles.
I'm a steed.
I'm a steed.
Or I guess we can call it the fell beast if we want to, because that's a little bit more descriptive. Just don't mistake fell beast for its proper name, like the New Line merchandising folks did.
That's right. It's a fell beast, not the fell beast.
Right.
Of course, somehow I think there's a Tolkien Professor Mike Drought joke in there now.
Don't call Corey or Mike a fell beast.
I'm just thinking the A and the the. You know?
I know.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, that does it for that philology fair. But before we get into the text, folks, we actually have another very special treat for you.
Well, as we finally arrive at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, we know we're going to be talking about a lot of military details, everything from how cavalry really work to the critical nature of battlefield morale.
And while Alan and I are certainly able to bring you the details from the text, along with our own understanding and thoughts, we wanted to bring you the level of insight you're accustomed to from the PPP. So we brought back someone special to help us out.
That's right. Now, earlier this season, when I was working with Matt from the Nerd of the Rings, we brought on Dr. Bret Deveraux, an ancient and military historian. And by that, I mean he studies ancient and military history, not that he is ancient. Just to be really clear, with a PhD in ancient history, that's us, Shawn, and an MA in classical civilizations. So he's definitely your kind of guy, Shawn.
Oh, without a doubt. And I'm super excited to talk to him. And folks, you may remember that Alan and I leaned pretty heavily on Bret's analysis when we covered Helm's Deep back in season 5. And if you haven't checked out his blog, A Collection of Unmitigated Pedantry, or ACOOP, do it.
Absolutely. Now, while we already knew that Bret was one of us, a fan of fantasy and sci-fi and really snarky commentary, having him on earlier this season made it even more obvious. So without any more delay, let me reintroduce you all to Dr. Bret Deveraux.
Great to be here. And I mean, we're talking about me being an ancient historian. I don't know what qualifies as ancient. My students certainly think that I'm ancient. Anything over 30, and you might as well be from the land before time.
That's true. It is very much a Logan's Run world these days.
Yep.
Not that the relevant audience actually gets that reference, but we'll move on.
No, that's true. Yeah.
They most certainly do not.
Someone should remake Logan's Run for the kids these days. Well, over the next 3 weeks, each of our chapter discussions is going to begin with a few questions from us and answers from Bret to give you all a better understanding of the details we're going to be covering in each episode.
Now, I've been looking forward to this since you were with us a couple months back, so let's go ahead and get started. Shawn, go ahead and take the first question.
All right, thank you. Well, Bret, before we get into the text of the chapter, there's a couple of things that I'd hope to have you talk about that Alan and Marcel discussed in the previous chapter, The Ride of the Rohirrim. First up, the way that the Rohirrim arrive at the battle is a little different than folks might remember from the movies. Theoden enlists the help of Han to get them around the enemy force on the road. And I can totally understand why they cut him from the film. I mean, if Tom Bombadil's not going to be in it, Gon's not going to make the cut. But can you talk to us a little bit about why that makes such a significant difference, or does it?
So this is actually one of my favorite little passages from the book because it's a wonderful example of what generals of armies in the sort of pre-modern world actually do. We tend to have this very sort of almost Total War-esque vision of what the general is doing. He's moving all of his troops on the battlefield. It's like, no. This is a society where the best communications technology is man on horse. Or man that shouts really loud. You just can't coordinate an army in combat situations like that. I mean, we'll come back to sort of the plans Theoden lays, I'm sure, later. But this is exactly the sort of thing that generalship would consist of. Remember that these armies often don't have maps. They often don't have detailed information. They certainly don't have GPS. Taking your army off the road when you don't know the local terrain is really tricky because what you do know is like you're like, this road starts here and it ends here. If I march along the road, I reach my intended destination. The moment you step off the road, you're completely blind, right? It is a pre-Google Maps world. And so Theoden here pulls a really good trick, right? He uses local contacts, right? He's aware of the Woses, and he realizes they share enemies. And so he makes a deal to get local guides. And those local guides provide him with local knowledge that there is a pathway around the road. There is a blocking force in his way.
Yeah.
And with the advantage of local guides, he just skirts right around it. And this is a sort of textbook move that your sort of great generals will pull in history of, but so-and-so became aware that there was a goat path that way. And then they show up in the enemy rear unexpectedly because of that superior local knowledge. This is just a great example of Theoden doing really good generalship.
Yeah.
And making use of local expertise and local knowledge. So I understand it doesn't make it into the film, as you say. Poor Tom Bombadil. Glorfindel of Gondolin isn't making it in either.
Yeah,
so,
right. Yeah,
the most slighted Lord of the Rings character ever there was.
Seriously,
absolutely.
But kill a Balrog, and what credit do you get? You get cut from the movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Tom, Glorfindel, Erkenbrand, and Hanbury need to start a club. They really do. So like you suggested earlier, we're going to get to Theoden's plans, and indeed we are. The book has Theoden splitting his forces before they go through what was left of the Ramas Echor. But even then, the plan seems, I got to say, kind of vague. Éomer was, go down the center behind the king's banner. Elfhelm, you go down the right. Grimbold, you go down the left. I mean, I've played third grade flag football games with more detailed plans for, receiving routes. Because then we read, let the other companies behind follow these three that lead as they have the chance. So it's kind of a two-part question. What would that have looked like? I mean, we're talking about 6,000 riders. They're not going to be riding in columns. That doesn't seem like a very smart way to use cavalry. Each of those companies, right, the Aorids have 120 riders. So how do they spread out? How do they decide where to go? And like you mentioned earlier, there's not going to be a lot of communication. So what do they do as battle begins? Right.
And so it's important to recognize the context here and the limits of planning that Theoden has available. It is still dark at this point. Remember that this is a pre-artificial light society. And in any event, rolling in with a ton of torches would announce their presence, which they don't want. So they're moving by very limited light. Their ability to see is pretty limited. And they're also, I think it's important to remember the terrain here. In the films, the Pelennor is like a grassland steppe. But in the books, it's described very clearly. It's rolling townlands. We get repeated references to villages and farmsteads scattered across it throughout the battle narrative. So this is a space that is complex to move through. And so part of what Theoden is doing is he's delegating a lot of authority. He's actually, to get a little bit into military theory for a second, he's engaging in what we would call mission command. That there's sort of two ways to lead an army. You can give your subordinates very clear instructions. Go here, do this, go there, do that, so on and so forth. Or under a mission command framework, you can give them an objective. I need to take that hill. Or more correctly, I need you to take that hill. And I don't, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You're going to figure that out. And then you're going to go to your subordinates and you're going to say, okay, we need to take this approach and this approach. And you're going to figure out how to do that. And you're delegating authority downward, which is really handy in a situation where you don't have a lot of communication. It's dark. You don't know what's out there. And so, so Theoden is using this sort of approach. You'll sometimes hear this go by the German term for it, Auftragstaktik, which just means mission tactics. It's not okay. It's not complex.
It is what it says on the tin.
I was just basking in the pronunciation.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
No, I mean, I'm sure it was a terrible pronunciation. My German is not
sounded
great.
Good to me, so you know.
But so Theoden is delegating a lot of that authority. I mean, nevertheless, he wants to make clear he's going to have the main force in the center, right? His main striking force, because he has the knights of his house, and then he's got Éomer directly behind him. And he's like, okay, and then I'm going to take my two subordinate commanders. You're on the right, you're on the left. Hold the flanks, handle it. Everybody else coming through should file in where it seems to be functioning. And we're going to sort of fan out, because that is what they are described as doing, is they fan out. And so I think we're to understand probably that what happens here is that Elfhelm and Grimbold are at the extreme ends of the flanks. The King's Banner is in the middle. Everybody else fill in the gaps as you do, and then we'll fan out as we move in. And this way, individual commanders in their smaller groups have the ability, like, if there's a barn in the way, they can just go around the barn. They're not locked into a formation. If there are fences, they can go down. Okay, it's going to be faster to go down this road and cut that way, and so on, and that sort of opportunity. And then again, we hear them fanning out, prior to the main engagement.
That makes sense. So when it talks about let the other companies behind follow these three that lead, it's not literally stay behind them. It's that you're following them because they're leading, but then you're going to fill in the gaps between, let's say, Elfhelm and the king, rather than follow behind Elfhelm or the king. So you're filling out horizontally instead of vertically.
I think that's what we should understand.
That makes more sense.
Especially, I'm going to talk about cavalry dynamics, but Theoden's army is going to want to form wide, not deep.
Absolutely.
Well, when we pick up in the current chapter, the Rohirric War playlist is finished. They're not singing as they slew anymore. And we see the results of that initial charge of the Rohirrim, when the text says, well nigh all the northern half of the Pelennor was overrun, and their camps were blazing. Orcs were flying towards the river like herds before the hunters, and the Rohirrim went hither and thither at their will. So, tell us, does a large force like this need to maintain formation while they're chasing down the enemy? And if so, how do they coordinate that from one era to another when, as you say, communication is not exactly as easy as just picking up the phone?
Right. So presumably each Erid has its leader. That leader has a banner or an identifier. We hear of the King's Banner. This would be very normal for European mounted heavy horse. We should also probably imagine that the Erid has subunits. In a medieval heavy horse sort of army, this would be the conroy, which was a unit of 5, 6, 7 heavy horsemen with their retinues. They would make up the sort of base unit, and the conroy trained together. That is what put them together. And then you'd assemble a bunch of those into a company, and you assemble a bunch of companies into a battle, and so on. And so you have these sort of individual blocks, and so they may be staying consistent with each other, but once the enemy formation begins to break up, and we're told that the orcs are flying and wailing and the hooves of wrath are riding over them, right? It's not great for them. That you do want your cavalry to exploit. And frankly, keeping control in these sorts of circumstances is going to be really hard. I think it's fairly clear, to me at least, Theoden does not completely lose control of the battle at this point, because when the Easterlings and the Southrons show up, he is able to reform a line and able to hit them. So he's letting his cavalry exploit, which is what they're good at. But he presumably has ways to signal. I mean, we know they all carry horns.
Horns, yeah.
Right.
So, you have some limited ability to signal that way. And so I think that this is probably part of what's going on, but also, right, again, these individual commanders locally presumably have a significant degree of autonomy. And I think we should assume, just for the way cavalry works, that they're using their mobility to bypass areas where the enemy is still coherent and together and focus on areas where the enemy is fleeing or scattered. And so you might well have sort of islands in the storm where the orcs have held together around some captain or what have you. Later, we'll hear about the Mumakil functioning this way, that most of the army has fallen apart, but around the Mumakil, they hold together.
Exactly.
And then in other areas, the cavalry can exploit. So you might imagine, rather than just horses and men willy-nilly everywhere, you might imagine, the companies of about maybe 100 men on horse. I think the Arid is 120.
120, yep.
Right. Those moving together, probably trying to keep a line, probably fairly dense, sweeping like a rolling pin across whoever they hit. And that formations like that moving across the battlefield.
Yeah.
And certainly their commanders are going to try and keep them together.
That makes sense.
Sort of clustered formations. There might be space between them, but yeah, got it. That makes sense.
Okay. Well, speaking of cavalry charges, we do get a really clear description of how a charge works in the text. Last chapter, it was very lyrical. You mentioned the hooves of wrath and all of that. It's such a beautiful set of prose, quite possibly my favorite piece of prose in the entire Legendarium, really. But it's not very descriptive in terms of detail. In this chapter, though, we read about the chieftain of the Haradrim and Theoden making googly eyes at each other across the field. And we read, and I'll skip quite a bit just to focus on the details. Theoden charged headlong to greet him with long spears. Right through the press drove Theoden. His spear was shivered as he threw down their chieftain. Outswept his sword, he spurred to the standard, hewed staff and bearer, and the black serpent foundered. Then all that was left unslain of their cavalry turned and fled. So we get the high-speed charge, we get the long spears, we get the shattering of his spear, and that's what shivered means in this context, folks. And then Theoden resorts to his backup weapon because his spear is in pieces. And then once the chieftain and standard bearer go down, their entire cavalry turns and runs. It feels right to me. Is it? Is that how it might work?
I think, again, this is one of those cases where Tolkien's having marinated in the realia of the period really shows off that this at least strikes me as the sort of way that this might be described in a medieval text. I should note, there is a tremendous amount of debate about the mechanics of heavy cavalry warfare. The obnoxious thing, of course, for us is that cavalry fighting fades out of warfare right as film is coming in. The last really big cavalry charges are in World War I. They are not filmed, and they don't work. So it's not a great example of how this is supposed to go.
Yeah.
And so we're left with a lot of sort of confusing evidence for exactly how cavalry mechanics function. And I've discussed this a bit on my blog. By and large, I think we should expect Theoden's heavy cavalry is going to function like medieval heavy cavalry. So it's going to be advancing in a fairly tight formation. Their opponents are probably going to respond by a fairly tight formation. We get lyrical descriptions in our sources. There's a great one where it's like you could throw a gauntlet and it would pass a mile over the mounted men before hitting the ground because they're all stirrup to stirrup. So you're pressed in. So Theoden's going to have all of the riders of his house. Obviously, they're using lances because a weapon that can reach past the head of your horse is really handy.
Yeah.
We certainly see artistic depictions, and we hear about this phrase, the press. Right. So your two forces of cavalry have come together. Once you realize that the other guy isn't going to swerve aside or break or run, probably going to slow down because a full speed collision is just going to kill everyone. And then you're going to get the press. Now, Theoden clearly comes in it pretty hard because he breaks his spear. But he doesn't then immediately turn into a giant rolling ball of men and horse. So he's presumably still has some control. And we know that this is something that medieval knights trained for, was charging a mounted opponent. You have a lance, he has a lance. The tournaments begin as training.
Yeah.
This is their purpose. And So he's engaging exactly like that. The chieftain goes down almost immediately, and hewing down the standard is a really nice touch because, again, you think about communication on the battlefield. Losing your chieftain could be a real problem. I'm put in mind of the Battle of Hastings, and a report arises up among the Norman force very early in the battle that their leader, William, then Duke of Normandy, soon to be William the Conqueror, King of England, that he's been slain. And the cavalry panics and begins to bail, and William has to he's been unhorsed. He has to find a new horse and take his helmet and be like, no, I'm still alive, guys. And they rally to him. So Theoden has slain the enemy chieftain. Yeah. I'm like, okay, now we need the morale impact to scatter them. How can I communicate to the enemy that their leader is dead? Well, he has a standard bearer right behind him who's noting his location on the battlefield. If I and the knights of my house, if we push forward and we overcome that standard bearer, then anyone paying attention, when they see that standard fall, they'll realize we just lost in the area of the battlefield where our chieftain was. Yeah. He's probably not with us anymore. And so Theoden, in the sort of wrath of his forefathers, surges forward, draws his backup weapon, and we're told, hewed staff and bearer. We're being like,
that's lyrical.
Awesome description, and definitely the kind of thing that happens in medieval poetry. Probably not physically possible.
Right. Not in one strike.
Cutting through a spear haft with a sword is going to take a few efforts.
Right.
But I mean, it's absolutely the sort of thing that, if Roland doesn't do that in the Song of Roland, it feels like he should.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And there is another reference, not in this passage, but in the previous section. The Tolkien wants you to know he's read the Song of Roland because Theoden blows on his horn so hard it bursts.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful literary homage because Roland does the exact same thing in the Song of Roland. So it's just so that you know that Roland's horn is famous. The Oliphant is his famous horn. Right. So just Tolkien wants you to know that he too has read his Song of Roland. So I feel like whether or not this is physically possible, it certainly fits with the sort of heroic literature of the period in a way that is just so good.
Excellent. And maybe that's ultimately more important than whether it's historically accurate or not. And I think that's a cool touch.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, I've got one more question about my favorite one-on-one fight in the battle, and that's between the Witch King and Éowyn. Now, in the book, the Witch King is said to be wielding a mace, and yet what we see in the films is more like what I think of as like a flail. It's like a big spiky head on a chain connected to a handle. What's your take on this weapon? How should we imagine the Witch King's mace based on how it's described in the book?
Okay, so let's work backwards. We'll start with movie flail. So that is certainly the popular image of a flail. I mean, it's comically huge, but it's the popular image of the sort of ball with spikes on chain. Most military flails don't look like that. The chain is much shorter. It is a pair of wooden staves, one or both of which has iron shod. That iron shod bit may have spikes. This is a converted agricultural device. Take the iron spikes off, and a flail is what you use to thresh wheat. And so a flail would actually be really weird for the Witch King to use. This is like a peasant's weapon. This is not a purpose battlefield weapon. There's quite a bit of debate about the extant examples of the sort of ball and chain flails that we see in museums as to if any of them are genuine.
Wow. Interesting.
So this may be a weapon type that is entirely sort of post-medieval forgery, or it may have been very, very rare. Certainly the long flail, the sort of shaft flail type is much more common. But that's a flail. As you say, the Witch King is described as having a mace, which is a stick with a metal head on the end of it. By the late Middle Ages, the shaft may also be in iron, so the whole thing might be steel. We see maces in all sorts of cultures, all the way from the Bronze Age through to the end of the Middle Ages. I mean, it's just a very standard weapon. Yeah. They really come to their popularity in the Middle Ages as we move into the High Middle Ages, and they're a response to mail armor, because a mace can deliver a lot of concussive force through that armor, and mail doesn't absorb concussive force so great.
No.
And then the mace tends to peter out a bit as plate becomes more common in the late Middle Ages, and we see instead things like war hammers, which are going to be more effective, though it never goes away. The mace is present in just about all periods. So what we might imagine the Witch King here carrying is one, it's probably a one-handed weapon. Like two-handed maces are mostly a thing in video games, and not real. So we probably expect a fairly thin iron shaft, maybe a couple feet long, with an iron or steel ball, or possibly we often see flanged maces where instead of a ball at the end. Gosh, how do you describe a flanged mace? People may just need to Google image search because it's a complex shape. Like imagine you've cut every other slice out of an apple and you have about the shape of a flanged mace. And the idea is that all the force is going to be concentrated on a single one of those flanges as it contacts. So you're really concentrating the force.
Okay.
And the flanges are usually brazed on, which is an interesting bit of metallurgy. Obviously, it's probably pretty big. He's inhumanly strong. But yeah, this is a pretty fearsome weapon, and we can imagine why this is the kind of weapon that might just utterly ruin Éowyn's shield.
Right.
And break her arm besides, because it's designed to deliver sort of pure concussive force. I think people tend to think about medieval weapons as being much heavier than they are. This is actually true for maces, by the way. I mean, even a mace isn't going to be more than 2 or 3 kilos.
But that's enough with that much, force. Rotational speed. Force is mass times acceleration. Yeah. So don't need that much mass.
But the real advantage of the mace is the mass is all concentrated at the point of impact. So as you're rotating it, you're getting all of that. Whereas with a sword, the point of balance on a sword is usually fairly close to your hand.
Yeah.
You'll sometimes hear it said that all swords should balance at the guard. That's not true, but they tend to balance close to the guard. And so the amount of concussive force you can deliver with a sword, even a big two-handed sword, is constrained, whereas with a mace, no, it hits quite hard. Yeah. And so, the idea that he's going to just deliver this kind of smashing strike where he's just going to break her arm behind her shield, I buy it. Of course, the mace's problem is that, unlike a sword, it is really hard to defend with it. It's less wieldy and it's slower. They tended to be used either in heavy armor or with shields or both, which might explain why when the Witch King is momentarily distracted by being stabbed in the ankle, he is in fact not able to defend himself effectively against Éowyn's counterstrike. He has a weapon that is all offense, no defense. What a perfect weapon for the arrogant Witch King who assumes that he is beyond danger of harm.
Yeah.
And so what do I need a defense for? What do I need a shield for, right? No living man can hinder me. Whoops.
Yeah, whoops indeed.
See how well that worked out for him.
Yeah, exactly. And now all of a sudden I'm put in mind of Han Solo's blaster and Obi-Wan Kenobi talking about the lightsaber and kind of bashing the blaster and saying, of course, the lightsaber is a more elegant weapon for. Yeah. So clearly, the mace is this sort of all offense, no defense. I love that. Great stuff. Yep. Well, folks, that does it for this week's Time with Bret, but he will be back next week to walk us through some more. Bret, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
I'll see you then.
All right.
Sounds great. And for now, let's go ahead and get back into the text.
Well, just like earlier this season, it was such a privilege to have Bret join us. I'm really glad, though, that he could be here during your episodes, too.
Oh, me too, man. I was so glad to get a chance to speak with him finally. I mean, he and I chatted online a few times, like on Twitter and stuff, but actually getting to talk to him was really cool. And those next 2 appearances and the upcoming episodes are going to be fantastic, too.
Yeah, they will.
But for now, Alan, it's time for you to start the chapter for us.
Oh my, I can't believe we're finally at this chapter, Shawn.
I know.
I mean, this is the stuff right here.
It is the moment.
But it was no orc chieftain or brigand that led the assault upon Gondor. The darkness was breaking too soon, before the date that his master had set for it. Fortune had betrayed him for the moment, and the world had turned against him. Victory was slipping from his grasp even as he stretched out his hand to seize it. But his arm was long. He was still in command, wielding great powers. King, Ringwraith, Lord of the Nazgul. He had many weapons. He left the gate and vanished. Theoden, king of the Mark, had reached the road from the gate to the river, and he turned towards the city that was now less than a mile distant. He slackened his speed a little, seeking new foes, and his knights came about him, and Durnhelm was with them. Ahead, nearer the walls, Elfhelm's men were among the siege engines, hewing, slaying, driving their foes into the fire pits. Well nigh all the northern half of the Pelennor was overrun, and there camps were blazing, orcs were flying towards the river like herds before the hunters, and the Rohirrim went hither and thither at their will. But they had not yet overthrown the siege, nor won the gate. Many foes stood before it, and on the further half of the plain were other hosts still unfought. And we'll stop there, because in order to get this chapter done right, we're actually doing a couple things different, right? Number one, we're breaking our own rule, and we're almost reading every word. We are still skipping some things, but we're reading more of this chapter than of any other chapter so far. We do apologize, HarperCollins and Tolkien Estate.
Yeah.
But we're also breaking these down into smaller chunks because there is so much there, as we are wont to say. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack in every paragraph. And so we're breaking the readings down into smaller sections tonight. And that also gives us the ability to give Shawn the passages he wants so that he won't reach through the screen and kill me.
You're so kind, sir.
Well, you know,
so good at self-preservation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump in here. For this first paragraph, we actually are returning to the gate, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
To that moment that's not at the end of the previous chapter, the Ride of the Rohirrim, but the moment at the end of the chapter before that, the Siege of Gondor.
Right.
That's that epic standoff between Gandalf and the Witch King.
Oh, I love that. And folks, to refresh your memory, Gandalf had simply denied him entry. You cannot enter here. It was really almost verbatim the way he handled the Balrog in Moria.
Yeah, it really was. And we saw what the Witch King did in response was he cursed Gandalf, laughed at him, and lifted up his sword.
Yeah, he had that fancy new model with the flames running down the blade.
I had that one in EverQuest, actually.
Oh,
it was very hard to get.
Vorpal sword +2.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But, and I love this line from that moment, Gandalf did not move.
Oh, still gives me chills.
Stood his ground. And that's when we heard the cock crowing at the dawn, followed by the horns of Rohan.
Horns, horns, horns. In dark Mindalo inside, they echoed. I mean, I can hear, I don't have that text up in front of me. And it's still there. It's so beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we return, of course, now to that exact moment in this chapter at the beginning, the Witch King being denied entry through the gate by Gandalf and the arrival of reinforcements from Rohan that the Lord of the Nazgul would have thought impossible.
That's right. And yet we see that the darkness was breaking too soon. He's surprised by this.
Oh, yeah.
He's shocked by this turn of events. Now, we saw the wind blowing at the tail end of the last chapter, and we know that it's driving the captured Haradrim ships up the Anduin to deliver, well, spoilers, Aragorn and a force from the southern fiefdoms of Gondor.
That's right. Now, this wind, I got to say, this is a good time, I think, to consider the other times where we see the wind involved and maybe ask if Manwë might be behind some or maybe even all of these. I mean, here, clearly, the wind is a key element. It's a key factor in the fact that the eucatastrophe actually happens at all.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right about this one. We also get a moment later on when a wind blows into the houses of healing, and there the text tells us, it bore no scent, but was an air wholly fresh and clean and young, as if it had not before been breathed by any living thing, and came new made from snow mountains high beneath a dome of stars, or from shores of silver far away, washed by seas of foam.
Wow, if that doesn't sound like Oilose and the shores of Valinor, I don't know what does.
Snow mountains right there.
I mean, that's right Oilose.
Yeah,
and shores of silver and the
Dome
seas
of stars. That's the reminder of Varda. That is very, very evocative of Manwë for sure.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you get the wind involved in a couple of very important characters' death scenes, right? Sauron's shadow gets blown away by a great wind.
That's right.
And then all the way at the very end, after the scouring, the spirit of Saruman looks to the west before a cold wind comes along and blows him away, too.
That's right. And it's interesting how much Sauron and Saruman's deaths sort of echo each other.
Yeah.
I mean, these are both Maiar. These are both fallen Maiar, obviously.
Yeah.
Both Maiar of Aule originally, although I don't know how relevant that is. I think it's just that they're both Maiar, and certainly with Saruman, we see that moment where, you know, he literally looks to the west. He's kind of like, can I come home? And it's like, no. The wind just blows him away.
Just disintegrates. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's right after he falls on the spikes on the wheel. You can see him look to the west. Oh, wait, no.
Oh, man.
I know.
Not the best moment in the movies, no.
No. But yeah, I really do think that this is it. It's certainly clear that moment of the Houses of Healing is Manwë, and I am virtually certain that this is also Manwë in terms of the eucatastrophe.
I'm sure.
The others, maybe they took a vote, and Manwë just kind of, and Manwë just blew the air over from Valinor. I mean, I don't know.
Should I blow these guys away? What should I do?
It's like, it's Manwë's birthday cake. Make a wish.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wish to never see either of you two jerks
That's
again.
right.
No, you can't come home.
Blow you right through the doors at night. Yeah, I know. We've turned your room into a sauna. You can't come home.
Parole denied. Stamp. All right. So back to the text here. Yeah, we see things are not going right for the Witch King.
No.
But even though things aren't going his way, even though fortune had betrayed him for the moment, the text reminds us that this guy is still extremely powerful.
Oh, yeah. This is no orc chieftain, no brigand, right? We get that line about his arm was long, which brings me back to the Pass of Caradhras. They're talking about Sauron then, about the enemy's arm has grown long indeed if he can control the weather. And Gandalf's like, his arm is long. And here, his second in command still has a very long arm, and he had many, many weapons. And so he leaves, right? But here's the interesting thing about him leaving the gate. Gandalf was right. He could not enter.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then we get that little break in the text, and then we come back in the next paragraph to the Rohirrim. This is the immediate aftermath of the charge we just saw at the end of the previous chapter.
That's right. And Theoden, at the fore of the Rohirrim, just as he was in the charge, has reached the road already, the one that runs from the gate to the Anduin. This is the road that goes all the way to Osgiliath. And now he turns the other direction and heads directly for the city.
That's right. And he slows down. He's looking for another enemy.
That's right.
And the text tells us that not only do his household men, or his knights, his sort of his inner crew, they come with him, as one does when you're in the king's inner crew. But it also tells us that Dernhelm was with them.
Exactly. And, in case you missed it, the text sort of calls that out again by reminding us of where Elfhelm is, because that's where Dernhelm is supposed to be.
That's right. Yeah, because Dernhelm was in Elfhelm's company, wasn't he, she, they.
Yeah, Dernhelm.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody.
Oh, come on.
I think everybody knows.
I think everybody knows, yeah.
Yeah, so Elfhelm's men are in among the siege engines, and importantly, they're flanking them.
That's right. So if you remember when we talked about those pits of fire that had been dug in front of the siege engines back in the Siege of Gondor chapter, they were built to protect them from sorties launched out of the gate of the city. Nothing was protecting them from a charge in the rear, because how could that happen? Right.
Right. And in fact, we see the Rohirrim have just about wiped out the enemy in the northern half of the Pelennor. We see orcs are running away, and the Rohirrim are kind of just going where they want.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But that is just part of the battlefield. It's the northern half. They still haven't secured the gate, and they certainly haven't broken the siege.
No, and in fact, there are entire armies of foes that still haven't even been fought yet in the south.
Yep. And we will fight them after the break. Now, before we get back to the text and those other co-hosts still unfought. Oh, wait, that's hosts, like armies. I see. Okay. I was like, all right, gonna
I mean,
put up
we
your
do
Duke,
have
Shawn.
We do have a history of not arguing, but we do fight to the pain.
Exactly. Well, we want to make sure you know that even after you've listened to this episode, there is a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast.
Yeah, the PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and great discussions across all of our social media spaces. So please check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony podcast. Follow the page to get the news and the episodes, but be sure to join the group for some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/prancingponypod. And on Twitter and Instagram, we're just at Prancing Pony Pod.
And I'm also finally on TikTok at Prancing Pony Pod, so please follow me there as well. And folks, if you enjoy the PPP, please consider supporting the show by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast. Now, when you do, there's a lot that you get. You get an active Discord community that includes live episode recordings, postscripts, ad-free episodes, and a lot more.
A lot more like free merch and live Discord hangouts, but you can also become part of the PPP's Questions After Nightfall episodes, or even join the show as a guest in the North Wing. So please, go to patreon.com/prancingponypod to show your support and join the fellowship of the podcast.
Now, you can also help us out by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and a rating on Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends. For now, though, let's get back to the text. Shawn, would you pick back up?
I certainly will. And I'm going to pick up right where you left off.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that this chapter.
Yeah, there is. Too much good stuff. Southward, beyond the road, lay the main force of the Haradrim, and there their horsemen were gathered about the standard of their chieftain. And he looked out, and in the growing light he saw the banner of the king, and that it was far ahead of the battle, with few men about it. Then he was filled with a red wrath, and shouted aloud, and displaying his standard, black serpent upon scarlet, he came against the white horse and the green with great press of men, and the drawing of the scimitars of the Southrons was like a glitter of stars. Then Theoden was aware of him, and would not wait for his onset, but crying to Snowmane, he charged headlong to greet him. Great was the clash of their meeting, but the white fury of the Northmen burned the hotter, and more skilled was their knighthood with long spears and bitter. Fewer were they, but they clove through the Southrons like a firebolt in a forest. Right through the press drove Theoden, Thengil's son, and his spear was shivered as he threw down their chieftain. Out swept his sword, and he spurred to the standard, hewed staff and bearer, and the black serpent foundered. Then all that was left unslain of their cavalry turned and fled far away.
Thank you, Shawn. That was great. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
So, we were talking about the other hosts still unfought, and one of those hosts, one of those armies, is the main force of the Haradrim. They're actually close enough that we can see their cavalry, and it's probably rather equivalent to Theoden's force here, right? The householdmen, a small contingent of warriors gathering around their leader. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And that leader, that chieftain, sees the Rohirrim's banner, and he notices that Theoden is isolated a bit on the field. Remember, during the charge, we saw Theoden was always in the front.
Always. I mean, it was such a fantastic read when you're going through that prose, but when it comes to actual tactical moves, this is why formation is so important, because getting isolated is very, very bad.
That's absolutely right. And the Haradrim chieftain is going to take advantage of this, or attempt to at least.
Yeah.
He reveals his own flag, which is a black snake on a red field, and he charges. And the Haradrim draw their swords, which are specifically described as scimitars.
That's right. Now, we've talked about varying weapon types before. The orcs in Khazad-dûm were described as using scimitars. The departure of Boromir, we read about the curved scimitars usual with orcs. But just as a reminder, folks, a scimitar is a single-edged sword with a convex curved blade. I don't remember where we talked about this, but we did read about this being especially useful in mounted combat because the momentum of the rider would then draw more of the cutting edge along a victim or a target than a straight blade would do. So it's a great blade for mounted.
I wonder if that was like maybe the Uruk-hai, or maybe
that's what I was thinking.
The Éomer's Rohirrim versus the Uruks and Book 3. I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I could look it up, I'm sure, at some point, just, searching for the word scimitars, but who knows where we talked about it. It might have been an aggression for all I know.
Sometime could be, yeah. So anyway, back to the text. Yeah, Theoden sees the Haradrim charging, and he does not wait. He rides out to meet the foe, and we're told great was the clash when these warriors met.
I love that.
I mean, you just see that visually, don't you?
You do. They're sort of making googly eyes at each other across the field. Like, I'm coming to get you. I'm coming to get you.
Right, yeah.
And then, you. Yeah. I love that moment. And the whole thing, though, when crying to Snowmane, he charged headlong to greet him. All I could hear, though, was headlong from Queen. And you're rushing headlong out of New Goal. And you're rushing headlong.
That would be a pretty awesome soundtrack for this moment.
Yeah, it really would. It really would. And we get this clear, and I love it. It's so vivid, this description of the battle, right? The small force of knights with Theoden, we find they're smaller than the Haradrim.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of numbers, we do know that Theoden had 24 of his best fighters with him. That goes back to the muster of Rohan, where we read, foremost went 12 of the king's householdmen, riders of renown. Then we get the fact that Éomer and Merry rode with the king, as did the errand riders of Gondor. And then behind them again, 12 more of the king's household.
That's right. So this small force would include any of that original group that survived. And let's face it, at this point, the fighting's been pretty easy. So it's probably all of them.
Yeah,
still.
that's what I'm thinking. Right.
Yeah. And then you add Dernhelm to that, and you add the king himself to that. So you got a small force of about 26.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know how much bigger the Haradrim force was, but it doesn't matter because the numbers don't matter. They're outmatched anyway because more skilled was the knighthood of the Rohirrim.
That's right. And then we get that line about long spears and bitter. And really, it only gets better from here. So a reminder that bitter here means sharp or keen or cutting.
That's right.
We see that used twice in that same context towards the end of last season, right? First, in Shelob's lair, Frodo hacks away at the spider webs. He is said to have drawn the bitter edge swiftly across a ladder of close-strung cords.
That's right. And then later in the Choices of Master Samwise, we read that Shelob, with the driving force of her own cruel will, with strength greater than any warrior's hand, thrust herself upon a bitter spike.
I love that moment.
Yeah.
But we also saw this sharp meaning of bitter way back in season 1, shortly after we started the podcast. Anybody remember this line from the Ainulindale? As who should take the whole field of Arda for the foundation of a pillar, and so raise it until the cone of its summit were more bitter than a needle.
Oh, yeah. I had forgotten about that. That is a gorgeous description.
Isn't it? That's such a cool phrase. And I know it's confusing as heck to us for a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so, we get these many times where Tolkien uses the word bitter to mean sharp. And I actually looked into this just a little while ago, like tonight, a couple hours before we recorded this.
Just a bit ago, yes.
Yeah, like literally just earlier tonight, because so I remembered that the word acrid, which, means something that's bitter tasting or bitter smelling. I remembered that actually comes from a Latin word that means sharp. And so I thought, okay, well, there must be a connection between bitterness of taste and sharpness. And sure enough, even in English, the word bitter actually comes from the same root as the word bite. So this connection between bitterness and sharpness really isn't a very strange connection. So I think it's very cool that Tolkien brings back this sort of ancient meaning of the word bitter.
That is cool. But anyway, sharp, pointy spears.
Sharp, pointy spears. That's the point.
There you go.
Yeah. And better weapons and better fighters, that's going to mean a victory despite being outnumbered.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it seems that Theoden himself actually seems to win this fight single-handedly. I mean, he defeats the Haradrim chieftain. He shatters his spear in the process. And then he pulls out his sword.
Yep.
He rides over to the banner bearer.
You're next, pal.
Breaks the staff and kills the bearer in one stroke, apparently. And unsurprisingly, poof, the Haradrim cavalry turn and run.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. That's it. This is where we get off, Chief.
That's right. I got a thing at the place.
Yeah.
And, I got to go.
I got to be somewhere.
I got a squash game at 5:00. I loved what Bret had to say about this earlier, though. The way the battle actually went, Theoden slicing through banner and bearer, might not be entirely accurate historically, but it's very accurate to the way these kinds of events would have been described in medieval literature.
That's just it. And I think that's more important than the historical accuracy or the physics of actually cutting through a person and a flagpole in one stroke.
In one stroke with a sword. It's just your backup weapon. Yeah.
Right. What's really important is that Tolkien is echoing medieval literature on battles here. And I think that's really cool. And frankly, it's also accurate in terms of the impact on morale to the Haradrim, because I mean, it's just as good as, superhuman just cleaving, a dude in a flagpole in one blow. It's like,
I mean, even if it took him 3 or 4 hacks, he's still got the king, the standard bearer, and the flag. That's the point.
Exactly. And that is formidable. And obviously they are going to remember their squash game.
I got to clean my andirons. Yeah.
I just remembered my car is a mess, man. I got to vacuum it.
Picking a little laundry in the dryer. I don't want it wrinkled. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back to the text, and you're going to pick up right there, aren't you?
Yes, I am. And we're getting dangerously close to that moment, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
But lo, suddenly in the midst of the glory of the king, his golden shield was dimmed. The new morning was blotted from the sky. Dark fell about him. Horses reared and screamed. Men cast from the saddle lay groveling on the ground. "To me! To me!" cried Theoden. "Up, Eolingus! Fear no darkness!" But Snowmane, wild with terror, stood up on high, fighting with the air, and then with a great scream, he crashed upon his side. A black dart had pierced him. The king fell beneath him. The great shadow descended like a falling cloud, and behold, it was a winged creature. If bird, then greater than all other birds, and it was naked, and neither quill nor feather did it bear, and its vast pinions were as webs of hide between horned fingers, and it stank. A creature of an older world, maybe it was, whose kind, lingering and forgotten mountains, cold beneath the moon, outstayed their day, and in hideous eyrie bred this last untimely brood, apt to evil. And the Dark Lord took it, and nursed it with fell meats, until it grew beyond the measure of all other things that fly, and he gave it to his servant to be his steed. Down, down it came, and then, folding its fingered webs, it gave a croaking cry, and settled upon the body of Snowmane, digging in its claws, stooping its long, naked neck. Upon it sat a shape, black-mantled, huge and threatening. A crown of steel he bore, but between rim and robe naught was there to see, save only a deadly gleam of eyes, the Lord of the Nazgul. To the air he had returned, summoning his steed ere the darkness failed, and now he was come again, bringing ruin, turning hope to despair and victory to death. A great black mace he wielded.
Oh my. Wow.
Okay.
What a reading. Awesome
Thank you,
stuff.
sir.
All
Hard
right.
not to read this well, though. I mean, this chapter is just full of these whoa moments.
It's a roller coaster, really. I mean,
is.
It's
The whole
back
chapter.
and forth. And we see, we just saw this amazing victory for the Rohirrim, this huge morale loss for the Haradrim. And yet, just as often happens in battle, the tide turns.
Yes.
And now things are not going Theoden's way. This is...
No, not at all.
Suddenly, this is going back towards the bad guys.
Very, very much so. That darkness that had broken too soon earlier, it is back. And it is back with a vengeance, and it is localized on the King of Rohan and his householdmen. These are the very best and bravest of Rohan, and they are groveling on the ground.
Well, and, the best and bravest men are going to have the very best horses of Rohan.
Yes,
and
that's right.
And these horses are rearing and screaming and throwing their riders out of the saddle.
Man.
It's a vivid reminder of the power of the Lord of the Nazgul and the fact that fear is their weapon, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Theoden, look, he tries to rally his troops. He's encouraging them not to be afraid of the shadow. Fear no darkness.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
But try as he might, he can't, instinct is too great for Snowmane, right?
Oh,
Snowmane
even
struggles.
Snowmane.
Yeah, even Snowmane, the king's horse, is
one of the Miras.
Yeah, and is afraid, is terrified, rears up before being shot by a black dart, a big black arrow.
Yeah.
And we have to wonder where this came from. I mean, the Witch King probably is not using a bow and arrow here. I don't see him
as a mounted archer. Yeah.
Right. So this must just be, I think, a lucky shot from one of the orcs or one of the Southerns.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the thing that comes to mind. I mean, I just can't imagine the Lord of the Nazgul up there trying to, plink people before he comes down.
He's got a different role on that battlefield.
He's got a very different set of weapons, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this just has to be like not
almost
a random shot, but a lucky shot from some random foe out there. And
absolutely.
Wherever it comes from, it is enough. Snowmane falls, and he lands on Theoden King and crushes him.
Oh, just a heartbreaking moment. we get to see this winged creature, right? This pterodactylic beast that Matt and I talked about back in episode 279. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now there we saw it flying above the Pelennor as Pippin and Baragond were looking down from the battlement near the citadel. Now, they were 700 feet above the plains looking down on this creature.
Right. So it was flying below that level, maybe 300 or 400 feet. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
And at that time, I believe you quoted letter number 211, in which Tolkien actually answered the question, did the Witch King ride a pterodactyl at the siege of Gondor?
Which is a great question, I have to admit.
It is.
And Shawn, because you were not here when I covered this with Matt, I want to read it again and get your take on it. So in that letter, Tolkien says, yes and no. I did not intend the steed of the Witch King to be what is now called a pterodactyl, and often is drawn with rather less shadowy evidence than lies behind many monsters of the new and fascinating semi-scientific mythology of the prehistoric. Tell us what you really feel, Professor.
Yeah.
Tolkien goes on to say, but obviously it is pterodactylic and owes much to the new mythology. And its description even provides a sort of way in which it could be a last survivor of older geological eras.
Yeah, and it does, really. I mean, the way he describes it, he does say, something from an older era, right?
Yeah.
So it does kind of open the door to it being something like that, some sort of prehistoric beast. But Tolkien does very clearly say it is not a pterodactyl as we know it. And I think that he's playing the cheeky philologist a little bit with his comment about obviously it is pterodactylic, because pterodactylic in the original Greek meaning of those words, that word actually comes from the Greek word pteron, which means wing, and dactylos, which means finger.
Right.
So in that sense, yes, the creature is pterodactylic. It has finger wings, right?
So is a bat, right?
Right. Not finger licking good wings. That would be disgusting.
Oh, gross.
But we get in this description, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
We get that he is bigger than any bird.
And now I'm just trying to picture the size of those wings at the pub.
Oh, it's disgusting. Oh,
and the sauce. What kind of sauce are you going to use with that? I mean, is there anything
really,
that could cover up the stank of those wings?
Something really strong. It's going to have to be really acrid or bitter.
Indeed it will. So bigger than any bird, and that includes the eagles. Folks, remember, Thorondor was said to have a wingspan, get this, 30 fathoms. That is 55 meters. That is 180 feet. Folks, that is more than half a football field in width.
Wow, that is big.
One wingtip at the goal line. The other wingtip is on the other side of the 50.
Wow.
That is huge.
That is big.
It's huge.
But it didn't have feathers like a bird. It had this hide, this skin between horned fingers. Oh. And yeah, probably like a huge bat where the bones of its wings are its fingers. And that's really made pretty clear when we read later that it's folding its fingered webs. So yeah, it is pterodactylic in that way, or just something like a disgusting giant bat.
I'm just beyond creeped out. I mean, this creature's always kind of been terrifying, but now picturing it like that, picturing it as a bat.
Well, I know how you feel about
wings
bats.
are more than 50 yards wide.
Yeah. I know how you feel about bats. And here in Austin, we do love our bats, but
yes,
we don't
not
want
if
them
they
that
were
big.
50 meters across. No. I think we'd be calling the U.S. military to dispatch bats of that
We would
size.
not want to be the bat city to those bats. That's for sure.
No doubt about it. So this line, though, the Dark Lord took it and nursed it with fell meats. Now, that totally reminds me of Carcharoth. And because I take any excuse I can to read from the Silmarillion, this is the passage that I was thinking of. Then Morgoth recalled the doom of Huan, and he chose one from among the whelps of the race of Draugluin, and he fed him with his own hand upon living flesh and put his power upon him. Swiftly the wolf grew until he could creep into no den, but lay huge and hungry before the feet of Morgoth. There the fire and anguish of hell entered into him, and he became filled with a devouring spirit, tormented, terrible, and strong. Carcharoth, the Red Maw, he is named in the tales of those days, and Anfauglir, the jaws of thirst. And Morgoth set him to lie unsleeping before the doors of Angband, lest Huan come.
Wow.
Same kind of vibe.
Yeah. Not feeding it Wagyu, that's for sure.
No. This is that box of meat that's like unfit for human consumption that maybe gets sent to like the school or the prison or something.
And by the school, we're talking like Springfield Elementary. Like, this is not going to your nicer school.
I sure hope not. If it's going to your school, you need to talk to the district. Yeah.
This is like Lunch Lady Doris is pulling this stuff out because Skinner's trying to cut costs.
Grease me up, Lunch Lady Doris.
Yeah, this is the kind of meat that comes in a drum.
Woo, man, that says all you need to say. Oh man.
Oh man.
Meat in a drum. I also have to say that, by the way, that when we get to Karkaroth, the Red Maw, he is named in the Tales of Those Days, I just keep seeing Maw, Maw, where you at, Maw?
Maw, where you?
We call her
Come
Red
in,
Maw.
There's a
wears
guy
a
at the
dress all
door,
the
Ma.
We call her Red Maw.
There's a guy and a girl at the door, Ma. They look like Droglin and Thuringwethel. I don't think it's them, though.
That them Thuringwethel. All right.
She smells too purty to be Thuringwethel.
That is great stuff right there. I love that. Can you come back and do the Silmarillion with me in a few years, please? That would be awesome.
We'll try and work it out, man.
All right, man. Good stuff.
All right. So anyway, back to the text. If Snowmane wasn't dead before, he's pretty dead now. He's got this hideous, stinking, prehistoric, giant pterodactyl bat thing, digging its claws into Snowmane and stooping down, presumably to take a little bite.
Yeah.
In the midst of the battle.
Flying's hungry work. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you think this terrifying creature, and it really is terrifying, let's be very clear, is bad, the guy writing it is far, far worse. And we are reminded now of his invisible visage. Yes, he wears a crown, and then we get this line, but between rim and robe, naught was there to see.
That's right. Oh, man. Such a powerful sentence.
It is. Oh, it is.
And this is it. This is the guy. This is the Lord of the Nazgul. He was last seen at the gate before dawn, and he has returned to the battlefield. And just look at the text that describes what happens when he arrives. He brings ruin. He turns hope to despair. The most powerful of all the weapons of the Nazgul is despair, right? Mm-hmm. And he turns hope into despair. He turns victory to death.
Yeah. This isn't just like a counter. It is a full-on flip. He takes it. He doesn't just defeat hope and he doesn't defeat victory. He turns them into their exact opposites. He is
right. He doesn't reduce it to zero. He goes negative. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then of course he is wielding a mace. We talked with Bret about that earlier, and we will touch on it again when he actually uses it. But in the meantime, Shawn, this is the moment that you have been waiting for a long time.
I'm going to need 5 takes.
I'm not going to deny you 5 takes.
But Theoden was not utterly forsaken. The knights of his house lay slain about him, or else, mastered by the madness of their steeds, were borne far away. Yet one stood there still, Dernhelm the young, faithful beyond fear, and he wept, for he had loved his lord as a father. Right through the charge, Merry had been borne unharmed behind him until the shadow came, and then Windfola had thrown them in his terror, and now ran wild upon the plain. Merry crawled on all fours like a dazed beast, and such a horror was on him that he was blind and sick. "King's man! King's man!" his heart cried within him. "You must stay by him. As a father you shall be to me, you said." But his will made no answer, and his body shook. He dared not open his eyes or look up. Then, out of the blackness in his mind, he thought that he heard Dernhelm speaking. Yet now the voice seemed strange, recalling some other voice that he had known. "Begone, foul Dwemer-like, Lord of Carrion! Leave the dead in peace!" A cold voice answered. "Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye. A sword rang as it was drawn. Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me, thou fool. No living man may hinder me. Then Mary heard of all sounds in that hour the strangest. It seemed that Dernhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel. But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Éowyn I am, Éowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Begone if you be not deathless. For living or dark undead, I will smite you if you touch him.
I'm just going to stand here and clap for a couple of minutes. That was fantastic, Shawn. Wow. Thank you for reading that. I've been waiting for that for a long, long time. I know you have too.
I have for a long time, man.
And it is fantastic. I absolutely love that. That was great.
Thank you.
So coming back to the beginning of that passage, right? The Lord of the Nazgul has turned hope to despair, but Theoden is not entirely alone.
Not entirely. His knights are either dead or have been run off on out-of-control horses, but there is one still there, and that's Dernhelm.
Oh, I love that. First of all, the fact that she's the only one and she's standing there sort of does remind me a little bit of Gandalf facing off against the Witch King, because he was the only one, right? They had all run away except for him. You know?
Yeah, that's a really good catch.
But here Dernhelm is described in such a beautiful way, faithful beyond fear. I love that. Obviously, I love the alliteration, but
of course,
I love what that means. And this line about loving his Lord as a father. I mean, yes, of course, right? Once we know who she is, but wow.
But like, think back to the first time you read this, and of course, you don't know it's Éowyn.
No,
again, you gotta separate what you know of the movies when we know that this is Éowyn from the very beginning.
That's right.
And Tolkien keeps it secret, and
he keeps it safe too.
He keeps it safe, absolutely. Also over the plate for you. But yeah, this is the first hint, right?
Yeah,
this idea that Dernhelm had loved his lord as a father, and the first time you're reading this, you're like, well, okay, well, that's interesting. I mean, you know, we've never seen this guy before. He just showed up, a couple of chapters ago. But okay,
hasn't said much. Yeah,
hasn't said much. But okay, I guess there's some history there between him and Theoden. But what Tolkien's doing is he's kind of leaving these little breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Right up until the moment when we actually see it revealed who it is.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
But anyway, we get this kind of subtle but clear shift in the text. We move from a lot of sort of high prose and heroic descriptions to Mary's perspective. And it happens right here.
You're right. It happens all in the space that it takes to describe what happened to Mary and why he's in a position to witness the confrontation that's about to take place.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Windfola, that's the horse that's bearing Dernhelm and Mary, had actually thrown them off, but fortunately it had not landed on them like Snowmane did on Theoden.
Battle of the Pelennor Fields ends very differently if he did.
Quite, yeah. Not quite so inspirational to me.
Exactly.
Whoops.
And as that happens, bam, we are now in Mary's perspective. I mean, you think about it, just a few pages ago, like 2 pages ago, we were reading some of the highest prose in the entire Legendarium, right? The charge of the Rohirrim is this flowery, beautiful, poetic language. And even just a moment ago with Theoden and his charge against the Haradrim and their captain, same kind of thing. And all of a sudden now we're into Mary's perspective. And he's experiencing this complete terror, right? So much so that he is blinded. But I have to say, until we were talking about Frodo being blinded in the Emyn Muil, and I was doing research for this, I had never really caught that before about him being blinded here. But I also don't know if blinded is quite the right word, because it's more like forced to shut his eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he must be able to see something because of what's about to happen. But I'm also remember when he ran into the Black Riders in Bree all the way back in book 1. And
that's right. He was the one who was out in the streets and encountered them. Yeah.
Yeah. And he kind of, we see another moment that's very similar to this, I think.
I think you're absolutely right.
He's kind of maybe not blinded, but he's kind of overcome by a shadow, the whole black breath thing.
Yeah.
So there is kind of a physical component to this. So maybe it is forced to shut his eyes, but I think there's also kind of a shadow kind of creeping over too.
Well, we know there's a shadow certainly emanating from the creature, if nothing else. And we also get this really very visceral description, right? He's also sick, which I think means he's sick. Poor Mary he's hurling right there on the field.
Yeah.
So terrifying. He's violently ill. He can't open his eyes. This is a bad spot. Yeah.
And yet, I guess he won't open his eyes or get his vision back until the next section that we read, because for now, really, what we're getting is a whole lot of description of sound, isn't it?
It is. And it's really interesting that we've not seen that in any adaptations, because how would we, right? Unless the filmmaker were brave enough to actually put the screen totally black and have us just hear this scene, which would be crazy.
Yeah.
But that's how Mary's perceiving this. And, he reminds himself first, again, he can't see anything, and he's lying there with his own vomit on the ground. Yeah. He's reminding himself that he is the king's man. I vowed to stay by your side. I'm like a son to him. He is like a father to me. I've got to do this.
And isn't that beautiful, the way that mirrors Dernhelm, who loved Theoden as a father? We've got two people on the battlefield, and as we know, these are like the two most unlikely people to be on this battlefield. The two people who should not be here.
That's right.
And they both love Theoden as a father, and that's why they're there. And that's what's going to...
Boy, wow. And when you compare that to Denethor and the fact that he can't really be loved as a father because he's just not.
I
mean, wow.
Yeah. So, but even with that reminder to himself that he loves Theoden as his father, still his will fails him. He can't even open his eyes.
No.
And that's kind of what begins this sort of passage where we see figuratively
through his ears
Mary hears. And we get the confrontation between Dernhelm and the Witch King, which first the opening gambit, my favorite line in all of literature. Begone, foul Dwemer-like, Lord of Carrion, leave the dead in peace. Oh my gosh, this is such an amazing line. The defiance and the courage and I mean, to stand up to the most terrifying opponent on this battlefield and say, you get off of him.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's not just get off of him, it's leave the dead in peace. It's not only, get the heck off this man that I love as a father, but also what you are doing is wrong. You are desecrating the dead.
Yeah, that's right. Lord
How
of
dare
Carrion.
you? This is a sin. This is a crime against nature and decency.
Yeah.
And the defiance in this line is just wonderful.
It really is. And of course, we talked about Dwemer-like at length in the intro. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. But after Dwemer-like, we get, Lord of Carrion. So she's basically saying that, he's a scavenger. He's come to eat the dead and demanding that he leave Theoden's body alone.
Yeah, she's brave to be doing this because I'll tell you what, his response is genuinely terrifying.
Oh, yes,
absolutely. I mean, terrifying.
Yeah. The houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness. Thy flesh shall be devoured, thy shriveled mind left naked to Sauron. This is a violation. He is describing a violation of body and mind.
Yeah. He actually, I mean, I don't want to even use the word, but you're absolutely right. Violation is a great way to put it, in a sort of euphemism. Horrifying and unending physical and mental torture.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking at here. And if there is anybody in the world who is in a position to deliver on this threat, it is this guy. There is no one more powerful than the Witch King, aside from Sauron himself, and most likely Gandalf 2.0. But even that's kind of that's pretty close.
Yeah, that is close. Because we saw those two pretty evenly matched.
Yeah.
But before we go on, let's talk a little bit about the Witch King's language here. He uses this form of the second person pronoun, thee, thou, and thy.
That's right.
Now, that's also something we're going to see the Mouth of Sauron do later on in this season. And I remember you talked about this a little bit with Don Marshall, didn't you? Back in episodes 269 and 271, my notes say.
Yep, I think so. In 269, we talked about the message that Arwen had sent to Aragorn through Halbarad. And that message was, I send thee what I have made for thee. And we talked about how these forms of the second person singular pronoun basically disappeared from English in the 18th century. And that though we think of them today as very formal because they're old, they're archaic, they're actually the way that friends and intimates would address each other.
That's right. And it's a lot like how a lot of other languages, even today, have a formal form of the word you and an informal form of the word you. So like, you know, French has tu as the informal, and then they have vous as the formal, or Spanish has, you know, tu and usted. German has, what is it? Du and z.
Du and z. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of languages still have that, and English did at one time too.
Yeah. But in 271, we then talked about Éowyn's transition from using that more formal, that more distant you in talking to Aragorn. She transitions to the intimate thee. And we pointed out that she was essentially confessing her love for Aragorn simply in her use of the second person pronoun.
Right.
While Aragorn, man,
that's
kept her at arm's length with you.
That's
brutal.
Right. Because this is not only informal, this is familiar, right?
Yeah.
And so using this term to refer to somebody, one of the things that it can connote is familiarity
and intimacy.
And that's exactly what she's doing. And you're right. He keeps her at arm's length.
He does.
He does later on address her with thee, with the close, with the familiar form. This is only after she's engaged to Faramir. And there's no question about what he means.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Right. No misinterpretation.
That's when he said, you know, he doesn't want to lead her on. That's when he says, I have wished thee joy ever since I first saw thee.
And I love that line. I love that line. So beautiful.
I do so much, especially because her name actually means joy in horses. You know, the wind part of that means joy. And so he is using a word that is in her name. I love that. But yeah, I mean, you know, like we're saying, like at that time, you can't misinterpret that familiarity. He's not going to be perceived as leading her on because she's now engaged.
Right. Exactly. So if it implies familiarity and intimacy, is the Witch King trying to hit on Éowyn while also threatening her with unending physical and mental torture? That's disgusting.
No.
The answer is no, because the other way to use the intimate or personal thee is to use it with a person of inferior station, like a servant. Right. Denethor uses it with Gandalf in the next chapter a couple of times.
That's right. He does.
And he's treating him like an inferior at that point.
Yeah.
And it's the same way that the Witch King speaks here, and it's the same way that the mouth of Sauron will do later. It is condescension. It is a reminder of the speaker's superiority in this case, and the inferiority of the listener.
I can speak to you as thou and thee,
but you can't speak to me that way.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Love that.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, with that awesome little digression done, let's get back to the text in this amazing confrontation.
So good.
Éowyn actually draws her weapon on the Lord of the Nazgul and says, basically, like, go for it. Do what you're going to do, but I'm going to try to stop you.
I love that. That's so...
Again, the
so
courage,
much courage.
Man. The courage. Again, like, this thing is terrifying. People are quailing in terror. Animals are mortally afraid of this creature. And she's just like, come on.
Bring it on.
Give me what you got. Hit me with your best shot.
Wow.
Seriously.
And now we need a Pat Benatar.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But then he comes back and he reminds her, or maybe tells her for the first time, of the prophecy that was made about him over 1,000 years before.
That's right. And to refresh your memory, folks, the host of the West at the time, with the men being led by Eärnur, the son of Eärnil, king of Gondor at the time, and the heir to the throne, the elves being led by Glorfindel, defeated the Witch King of Angmar, this guy right here that she's confronting, in the Battle of Fornost. Now, Eärnur wanted to go after him, but Glorfindel said, far off yet is his doom, and not by the hand of man will he fall.
That's right. And this is actually reiterated by Gandalf in Council with Denethor, with Gandalf adding that hidden from the wise is the doom that awaits him. We don't know what's going to happen to him.
That's right. This is an interesting prophecy, right? I mean, there's so much ink spilled on what this prophecy really means, whether he meant the race of man or the male gender. because we get to marry an Éowyn who fit one but not the other in both cases. It's
Why
very
not
interesting
both?
stuff. Yeah. But there's also some literary similarities, aren't there?
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, absolutely. Because this is one of those places where famously Tolkien was kind of trying to improve on Shakespeare here. You know, we know that there's not a
Like
ton of places where Tolkien references Shakespeare. He does a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Famously, he was not very fond of Shakespeare. I tend to think he was overstating it a little bit. I think it's just because, you know, if everybody loves Shakespeare, Tolkien's going to say
he's a contrary guy. He was a contrarian in so many ways.
He's a contrarian. He's very much sort of an iconoclast. He always rejected sort of the accepted wisdom of you know, literary professors. So of course, when everybody says Shakespeare is the greatest thing since sliced bread, he's going to be like, nah, Shakespeare sucks. You know, Beowulf is where it's at. You know,
That's right.
But he doesn't seem, you know, he's not particularly fond of Shakespeare. I don't think he despises him, but he's not particularly fond of him. And a couple of the things that he cited in his letters was that, you know, he kind of felt that Shakespeare copped out on a couple of really big things in Macbeth, one of which was Birnam Wood going to Dunsinane, right? Yeah. Marching to Dunsinane.
And we see that with the Huorns,
just turned out to be a bunch of guys with, you know, sticks on their clothes. And so lame. Tolkien decided to like, well, no, I'm going to do that right.
Yeah,
and so
let's do an actual forest. Yeah.
Exactly. So he does the Ents and the Huorns going to Isengard. And the other thing was the moment from Macbeth where there is this prophecy that the witches have told Macbeth that none of woman born shall harm him.
Yeah.
And so Macbeth is thinking, well, everybody's born from a woman, right? So nobody's going to harm me. And
I am invincible. Mighty
exactly. Me. He gets this hubris out of it. And then we find out later that Macduff, who ends up killing him, was actually, Shakespeare's phrase is, from his mother's womb untimely ripped, which basically means he was born by cesarean section.
Right.
So,
fascinating stuff.
So Shakespeare kind of plays with the language of prophecy, kind of like makes a little, I don't know what the word is, but you know, it's a matter of misinterpretation.
Yes.
And Tolkien, I guess, felt a little bit let down by that. And so he's trying to kind of like do this, you know, kind of one up it, I guess.
Yeah. And it is because it's more complicated on multiple levels. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's like, is it no living man as in human, or is it no living man as in male? And as we will see, he is going to end up felled by
one of each,
someone who's the opposite of both of those.
Yeah.
Now, I have to give a shout out to our old friend Jeff LaSala from Tor.com, because he actually reached out to me a few days ago with another Shakespearean connection here. He said, hey, do you think that Tolkien is intentionally doing this too? And as soon as I read it, I was like, yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
Jeff noticed that there's a line from King Lear, and the line is, come not between the dragon and his wrath.
Oh, my.
Now, that sounds a lot like come not between the Nazgul and his prey.
Absolutely, it does.
And I'm not that familiar with King Lear. I honestly, I've never read it. I've never seen a production of it. So I didn't know this line, but instantly I thought, yeah, he's got to be doing that. And if he's going to reference Shakespeare anywhere, he's going to do it here because we already know he's doing it here.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, well, we know he's doing it here. So absolutely. And turns out Michael Drought also made this connection. I found a 2004 essay that was published in Tolkien Studies where Drought makes the connection between that line and King Lear. So yeah, I mean, Tolkien is very likely making not just one, but two Shakespearean allusions here.
Wow, he's
and
good.
I just want to give a big thanks to Jeff and Professor Drought for that.
Of course. Absolutely. Well, coming back to the meat of the prophecy itself, you know, there's also the question of this. Was this actually Glorfindel prophesying? Because Glorfindel wasn't a prophet. He wasn't known as somebody who prophesied a lot, right? This wasn't the one who prophesied about the Northern Kingdom and, you know, that Arvedui, you're going to be the last king if this thing happens and not if this other thing doesn't happen. You know, this isn't a prophet ordinarily.
Right. That's a good point. He could have just been saying,
actually prophecy, or was he just trying to keep this idiot from going off and
doing something
stupid? No. Leave him alone. Far off yet's his doom.
Right.
Not by the hand of man will he fall. I mean, it's Glorfindel just speaking poetically to get Eärnur to not be stupid.
That's a very interesting question. Because, yeah, it could just be like, no, this is not your fight. You can't win this fight. This is almost like Gandalf saying to the dwarves in The Hobbit, like, the necromancer is a foe beyond any of you.
Don't do it. It's not.
It's not prophecy. It's just, this is totally not your fight.
He's just speaking what is. You're not going to get this guy.
It's just the truth. Yeah.
And it would end up being the truth later on when this guy would then go and face off against the Witch King at a later date and find himself disappeared.
Right. Yeah. That's very interesting.
The only thing that makes me think maybe it is prophecy, or at least maybe it's been then perceived to be genuine prophecy, is the fact that Gandalf repeats it as though it is. That's the only thing that sort of counters the idea of it being just some Glorfindel wisdom. But even then, that doesn't necessarily make it so. What was it at the time? What did Glorfindel... I know we're sort of trying to divine what his original intent was, but which is not possible to do. But it's an interesting kind of theoretical question to ask.
It is an interesting question, and especially interesting because the Witch King has made so much of this at this point, right?
Oh, he absolutely has.
He believes his own myth at this point.
He really does, because word of the prophecy obviously got back to him. He's probably reminded everybody, hey, did you know? No man can harm me.
Right, yeah, it's like, right.
Did you know? Have you heard?
I'm reminded of the scenes in Arrested Development where Job is walking around reminding everybody of how expensive his suits are.
Yes,
I'm just imagining the Witch King just walking around like, yeah, that's right. The guy who no man can harm is scared of you. Come on.
No man can harm me.
Yeah, that's right. No man can harm me. Come on.
Bring it on. Oh, man. I love that. That's really good stuff.
Yeah. And that's why I love this so much, because, he's drunk the Kool-Aid on this prophecy.
He sure has.
He really
think about it. This has been 1,000 years and no man has harmed him. So he's got a track record of, well, it works so far.
Absolutely. And, and that goes back to the thing we talked about with Bret earlier about, his weapon being all offense and no defense, right?
Exactly.
This is a guy who thinks he can't be harmed.
Right.
And that defines not only the gear that he carries into battle, but also the way he goes into battle. And he's arrogant is an understatement.
Boy, you're not kidding.
So going back to the text here, we are still hearing the world through Merry's ears. And then we hear the unexpected sound of laughter.
Oh, that is great.
Of all sounds in that hour, the strangest.
It would have been so weird to hear that sound.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So she has just been threatened with unending physical and mental torture, and she laughs at the Witch King. I have to say, I'm beginning to think Jackson did not do her justice.
Oh, yeah.
I am no man. This entire speech is boiled down to I am no man.
This is why I mean,
don't worry. I love that scene.
It's cool. It's cool in the movie, but I have always felt it did her wrong. It just, this amazing speech boiled down to, it's a cool, burn moment, it's a zinger.
That's true.
But no, we do not get the Éowyn that we get in the book. Absolutely not.
No.
So not only does she say, I am no man, she actually, she lists out her qualifications vis-a-vis the prophecy, right? She's
right,
like,
she does.
Well, I'm not a living man. I'm a living woman. So get your black-robed backside off this field, because if you can be killed, I'm going to kill you.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I have a few provisos, a few quid pro quos.
This is why you should always read the terms and conditions, folks.
Did not read the EULA.
No, you didn't read the EULA. I love this moment. I've said it for years. I absolutely love this moment. It makes my heart race every time.
Yeah, same.
And it's because it is such a great scene, and she is such an amazing character. And I just, it's wonderful.
It is.
It's absolutely wonderful.
100%.
But it's time for another reading.
Yeah, text continues.
The text continues, and I'm going to let you pick up.
All right. The winged creature screamed at her, but the ringwraith made no answer and was silent, as if in sudden doubt. Very amazement for a moment conquered Merry's fear. He opened his eyes, and the blackness was lifted from them. There, some paces from him, sat the great beast, and all seemed dark about it. And above it loomed the Nazgul lord like a shadow of despair. A little to the left, facing them, stood she whom he had called Durnhelm. But the helm of her secrecy had fallen from her, and her bright hair, released from its bonds, gleamed with pale gold upon her shoulders. Her eyes, gray as the sea, were hard and fell, and yet tears were on her cheek. A sword was in her hand, and she raised her shield against the horror of her enemy's eyes. Éowyn it was, and Durnhelm also. For into Merry's mind flashed the memory of the face that he saw at the riding from Dunharrow, the face of one that goes seeking death, having no hope. Pity filled his heart, and great wonder, and suddenly the slow-kindled courage of his race awoke. He clenched his hand. She should not die, so fair, so desperate. At least she should not die alone, unaided. The face of their enemy was not turned towards him, but still he hardly dared to move, dreading lest the deadly eyes should fall on him. Slowly, slowly he began to crawl aside. But the black captain, in doubt and malice intent upon the woman before him, heeded him no more than a worm in the mud. Suddenly the great beast beat its hideous wings, and the wind of them was foul. Again it leaped into the air, and then swiftly fell down upon Éowyn, shrieking, striking with beak and claw. Still she did not blench. Maiden of the Rohirrim, child of kings, slender but as a steel blade, fair yet terrible. A swift stroke she dealt, skilled and deadly. The outstretched neck she clove asunder, and the hewn head fell like a stone. Backward she sprang as the huge shape crashed to ruin. Vast wings outspread, crumpled on the earth, and with its fall, the shadow passed away. A light fell about her, and her hair shone in the sunrise.
Oh, man.
Chills! Whew. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. What a moment.
Such a moment. I love everything about this episode. Every moment in this episode.
This whole chapter is just amazing stuff.
All right. So we saw Durnhelm, now revealed as Éowyn, standing up to the Witch King. And the Witch King is not used to this. People do not.
Nobody stands up to the Witch King.
Nobody stands up to the Witch King. He's taken aback by this. He hesitates.
Yeah.
While his beast shrieks.
Yeah.
And Mary, in a little bit of amazement. I mean, very amazement.
Like, what just happened?
What wait, Éowyn?
What?
And he overcomes his fear enough to open his eyes. And now we actually get to see what's happening.
Yeah, that's right. Before we were only hearing the sounds. We were hearing the sword drawn. We were hearing the laughter. And now we get to see, and we get the lay of the land, so to speak, where Mary is in relation to the Nazgul and the fell beast, for lack of a better word. And then, of course, Éowyn. So the Nazgul on the beast is creating this localized shadow of darkness and despair. And that's on the right side. On the left side, as he's looking at the Witch King, is Durnhelm herself.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we get this line that I love so much. The helm of her secrecy had fallen from her. And you know why I love this.
I do. I know. I mean, everybody loves it. It's a great line, but I know why you love it. And it's because this isn't just, well, hey, now we know who she is. This isn't just, okay, there's a revelation. It is a play on the name itself. If you remember in the Muster of Rohan, we talked about Durnhelm, and the literal meaning of that word is helm of secrecy.
Right.
So the Durnhelm has fallen from Durnhelm. This is fantastic stuff right here.
Absolutely. Wonderful wordplay from the
Isn't
professor.
It? Oh, it's so good.
And it is followed by a beautiful, emotional,
so rich. Yes,
powerful description of her right here. She is beautiful, and she is strong, and oh my gosh, it's so amazing. We get this bright hair gleaming with pale gold on her shoulders. We beautiful. Get gray eyes that are hard.
Yeah.
Hard gray eyes, but also tearful. with a tear on her cheek. There's a real contrast here between, this kind of cold hardness in her eyes, but also the warmth and the vulnerability of this tear.
Yeah. The two they're juxtaposed against each other, right?
Yes, yes, that's a very good word. Juxtaposed against each other. Absolutely. And we get her sword in one hand and the shield raised against the terror of the Witch
Not
King.
against the weapons, right? Not against the mace, not against anything physical. It's against the terror of the Witch King.
Good point. She is not shielding against a physical blow. She is raising the shield to protect herself from the fear.
From the glare, from the eyes of this terrible creature. Ooh.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I mean, and so many artists have done this scene. I've got one on my desktop right now.
Yeah, I bet.
I've actually got
you do.
2 different versions of this scene on 2 different computers right now. Because it is just my favorite scene.
Oh man, it is some good stuff. I knew from the beginning of, I don't know, when we were talking about this very scene, probably middle of season 1, we probably already thought about, well, when we get there, I want to read that. Yeah. And I this has been so
wonderful. I'm so glad we're here. I'm so glad we're here.
I really am. So Mary realizes this isn't just Éowyn dressed up as Dernhelm. I love this, that it is both Éowyn and Dernhelm. Yeah. She's really both combined. He remembers not just the Éowyn that he met in Medjugorje, but the face that he saw in the Muster of Rohan, the face that he knew was seeking death.
Yeah.
And he's moved by this. He's moved by pity. And I find this interesting, right? Éowyn starts out with courage, and she maintains it throughout. Mary starts out absolutely shattered. Eyes can't even open, throwing up, violently sick. Mm-hmm. But now he is so moved by her strength and her resolve. And then now he's moved by pity for her because he sees her in this desperate situation. His courage shows up, right? The Hobbit courage that's not on the surface. It's a very deep courage. It shows up, and that's followed immediately by his determination. First, that she shouldn't die, but then even if she is, she shouldn't die alone without help. Right. And I love that moment for Mary.
If nothing else, I can die by her side.
Yeah.
Or die helping her.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's that slow kindled courage of the hobbits, and it is.
What a phrase you used there. Oh.
Yeah. It is pity and it is love.
Yeah.
That moves him to this.
Yeah.
And so he does. He wants to do something. He wants to act. He thinks about moving.
Yeah.
But he's still terrified. He is terrified of gaining the Witch King's attention.
Oh, he has heard about those houses of lamentation. He wants nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
I want no truck with those houses, man.
I don't like the sound of that. I don't want to go there.
I don't want no shriveled mind thing.
No. Worst Airbnb ever.
Seriously. The lights didn't work. It turns out it was a nudist colony. I didn't know it, but it was just a mental
told us
nudist
to strip
colony.
Naked. They were leaving us open to the lidless eye, whatever that is.
Terrible. Yeah, the reviews are awful. They actually had to remove it altogether.
Yeah. So anyway, he does move. He crawls slowly, ever so slowly.
Yes. Yeah.
He wants to get closer, but he also wants to not be noticed. He wants to avoid the Witch King's gaze here.
Can't blame him. But here's the thing. The Witch King is busy. He cannot be bothered with a tiny little hobbit. More on that in the mailbag. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's going to be a fun discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So the pterodactyl bat flaps its
the pterodactyl bat.
Wings.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Spend no expense.
You were so busy thinking about whether you could that you didn't think about whether you should.
That's right. Oh, man.
So, yeah, it flaps its disgusting wings and
it's rank, man.
Jumps into the air and attacks Éowyn.
Yeah,
she does not blench. Now,
I love that word. Tell me, you've got to know about that word.
I've got some stuff on this word.
Good.
Blench actually means to flinch, and that's clearly the meaning here. She does not flinch at this attack. But it's an interesting word because there are actually 2 separate unrelated words, blench, in the Oxford English Dictionary. There's blench that means to flinch, and that I believe is intended here. That word is actually related to blink. And I guess it's the idea of like,
oh, interesting.
I don't know, a blink as a reaction to something, I guess is the idea there.
Yeah. Instinctual reaction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But there's another word, blench, that originally was a separate word, and they've kind of converged a little bit over time. And that means to go pale or white.
Oh.
And that's related to words like blanch and bleach.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize bleach, but of course that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she doesn't blench, which means she doesn't flinch, but it could also be construed as meaning she doesn't go pale. She doesn't go white. I mean, either one of those is something that she might do if she were scared. Notably, she doesn't do either one of them. So she is holding firm. She is courageous here.
But did she blave? Because we know that to blave. No,
Éowyn never blaves.
No, Éowyn never blaves. No.
She would never blave.
All right.
So then we get another great description of her.
Oh, we do. As she strikes at the beast's neck, right? Cutting off its head, and it crashes and crumples, this huge, huge monstrosity. And the darkness that we've seen, the darkness that caused Snowmane to rear up and kill Theoden, that darkness dissipates with the killing of this monstrosity, and it ends with a light literally shining on Éowyn.
Oh my gosh.
That is the moment. That is a cinematic moment right there.
That is it. That is beautiful. Now, tell me about the darkness and the light here. Do you think that this is just a physical shadow because this beast is this huge beast with these giant wings?
No, I think
this is metaphysical, isn't it?
There is some metaphysical to it.
I think
no doubt
so
about
too.
it.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page there.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to perceive this in the same way that the Lord of the Nazgul himself creates a darkness in a way.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a localized form of the same phenomenon that we've been seeing for the last couple of days where the entire sky is covered in darkness. This is just a greater darkness.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And it makes me think of Ungoliant, sort of this unlight.
Yeah.
I mean, not to the same degree. I mean, this guy's clearly not as powerful as Ungoliant, who was able to literally consume light and spit out darkness in its place. But it's the same idea.
It is kind of an unthing, isn't it? It's something that blocks out light, for sure.
Yeah. And it certainly was terrifying. I mean, enough that, like you said, the greatest horses in the world were terrified of it.
Yeah.
And then we do get an actual physical light, like the sun's rays popping through the clouds, literally shining on Éowyn, which is glorious. Absolutely
and
glorious.
Her hair shone in the sunrise. And this description is, again, I'm struck by how beautiful and powerful she is, both at the same time in this moment.
Yeah,
and it's lovely. It's beyond lovely.
It really is. For those of you guys out there who think that a strong, powerful woman can't also be beautiful, or that a beautiful woman is by definition weak,
absolutely,
I got news for you, pal.
Absolutely,
you're wrong.
Absolutely, 150%.
She is amazing in this moment. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, Shawn, I've got you reading the last bit for tonight's episode. Take it away as Éowyn finishes the job.
Out of the wreck rose the Black Rider, tall and threatening, towering above her. With a cry of hatred that stung the very ears like venom, he let fall his mace. Her shield was shivered in many pieces, and her arm was broken. She stumbled to her knees. He bent over her like a cloud, and his eyes glittered. He raised his mace to kill. But suddenly, he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain, and his stroke went wide, driving into the ground. Merry's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle, and passing up beneath the hauberk, had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. "Éowyn! Éowyn!" cried Merry. Then tottering, struggling up, with her last strength she drove her sword between crown and mantle as the great shoulders bowed before her. The sword broke, sparkling into many shards. The crown rolled away with a clang. Éowyn fell forward upon her fallen foe, but lo! The mantle and hauberk were empty. Shapeless they lay now on the ground, torn and tumbled, and a cry went up into the shuddering air and faded to a shrill wailing, passing with the wind, a voice bodiless and thin that died and was swallowed up, and was never heard again in that age of this world.
Chills. Just chills. Okay, we'll get to some of those moments. Let's go back to the beginning of that passage. All right, Éowyn, you've killed this terrifying creature, and now the Black Rider is here. His huge, menacing, terrifying presence is in front of you.
Yes, and he lets out a shriek, a hateful shriek that actually had its own physical impact.
Yeah.
It struck the ears like venom. Right?
Yeah.
The films actually got that right.
They sure did.
The physicality of that shriek.
The literal pain in your ears as you're watching that in the theaters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And so he lets out this shriek, and then he strikes at her with his mace. Now, like Bret talked about, like we mentioned a moment ago, a mace is a weapon that's all offense, no defense.
That's right. And it is very, very effective at delivering a large and focused amount of force, especially if it's a flanged mace. But it is unwieldy and slow in comparison to other weapons like a sword. And that's what makes it all offense, no defense.
That's correct. But it is very, very big on offense. And that mace delivers enough concussive force, that blunt force, to shatter Éowyn's shield and her arm.
Yep.
In
one blow.
Which causes her to fall to her knees. And that's, I mean, that really should be it. This is a chance for the Lord of the Nazgul to deliver that killing blow. And one knows this is not the first time. This is not the first time that he's used this weapon in combat. He knows how to use it. You knock the opponent down with one blow, make them vulnerable, and then kill them before they can recover. That's what he's about to do here.
This is his MO. This is how he's done it all along for the last 1,000 years that he's needed to engage in any combat.
Yep.
But then Tolkien delivers a surprise for us here. And I love the way he did this. In other spots, he might say, Merry snuck up from behind and hamstrung him, causing him to fall forward. But here he starts with the result instead of Merry's perspective in order to preserve that moment of surprise.
Right. The stumble forward.
Yeah.
The cry of pain. Absolutely. And he cries out and and this has a ripple effect. He cries out, his blow misses. Yeah. His mace goes wide, it strikes the ground. And only then does Tolkien tell us actually what happened, that Merry had actually stabbed him from behind. You're absolutely right. It's so much more artfully done.
Isn't it? It's subtle.
Just Merry crept up behind him.
Right.
So the sword cuts through the cloak, the mantle, then under the armor, taking out the Nazgul's knee.
Yeah. Oh, the Witch King is down, folks. You're not going to want to watch this one on the replay. They're bringing out the cart. Looks like it might be an ACL tear, probably out for the rest of the season. Who is the backup Witch King? Who do they have on the bench?
Bringing out the cart. I just imagine him sitting on the cart with his leg up.
His teammates coming along, giving him high fives now that he's
giving
off
a thumbs up as they wheel him off the field. Crowds cheering.
Oh man. Yeah, this is such a bad injury though. They're not even showing the replay. Like, no, we're not going to do this.
This is a career ender for sure.
That's right. He'll be lucky if he ever plays again.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, having taken out the Witch King's ACL. Yeah, so Merry's basically just cried out Éowyn's name to let her know that now's her chance, right? This is your chance.
Absolutely. Now, she can barely even stand up. I mean, keep in mind, her arm is broken, so she can't push off the ground with that arm either. She's been in close proximity to this hellish pterobat of nightmares.
Yep.
Pterodactybat. Sorry, I skipped a syllable.
Right. Yeah.
And then, of course, the Witch King himself. So she is really in a rough place, but she gathers her absolute last strength to stab the Nazgul in the freaking face.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yes, she does. In the face.
Oh.
in the face.
In the face. Such a great move.
In the face. Coming to America.
I remember that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. References. Yes.
Yeah. Stabs him in the face. This is such a gangster move, man.
It really is.
But it's not without cost. I mean, her sword sparkles as it breaks into shards. It shatters.
Ooh.
This thing is crumbling like glass almost. The Nazgul's crown rolls away.
Yeah.
And when Éowyn falls forward onto the Witch King's body, nobody. The
That's
armor,
right. There's nobody there.
Yeah, the armor and robe are now empty. They're just a crumpled mess on the ground.
Yeah.
So whatever physicality or corporeality that he had is now gone.
That's right. And that's when they hear that cry that fades into the wail before disappearing altogether. I actually want to take a minute because that's where you start to notice the alliteration. Well, actually, you notice it throughout. Shield shivered. You get suddenly stumbled. You get sword stabbed. It just keeps going, doesn't it? Right? Crown clang, fell forward, fallen foe, which is, of course, the most obvious one.
You're absolutely right.
Torn and tumbled, shuddering air, shrill wailing. It's so rich. It's so rich. And of course, as you read it out loud, that's where you notice all that. But that wail, that shrill wailing passing with the wind, yet another alliteration, wailing and wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. But that last bit, by the way, I just want to talk about that. This idea that was never heard again in that age of this world. That's just a bit of poeticism, right? This is not that he came back in some later age. I mean, 10 days from now, the ring is destroyed and he's gone forever. It's just this sort of poetic way of saying he's gone.
Right.
Okay, but now's the big question, isn't it, Shawn?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have no doubt in my mind, but fans have gone back and forth.
Of course you have no doubt.
Of course not.
Fans You're pretty sure she killed Sauron while she was at it.
Éowyn did it all. Come on.
That's right.
She's the only reason that the War of the Ring was a success. No, but in reality, I mean, fans have gone back and forth for decades on whether Merry or Éowyn killed the Witch King, who ultimately gets credit for the takedown. And I mean, look, I think it's pretty clear, but let's go ahead and talk about it. Although I guess it's probably fair to say that killed may be kind of a strong word.
Yeah.
We'll get it a little bit more into that in the mailbag.
Indeed,
but
we will.
Alan, why don't you go ahead with one side of the argument here?
Oh, you mean with the losing side?
Yeah, that side, please.
So on the Merry side, we get the text that we're going to read next week. No other blade, not though mightier hands had wielded it, would have dealt that foe a wound so bitter, cleaving the undead flesh, breaking the spell that knit his unseen sinews to his will. So that sounds like, okay, you need your sinews to keep your body intact. So, it's not just the ACL, or in this case, the PCL. That sounds like maybe Merry.
Merry did something important, obviously, because
Clearly.
that blade was needed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the Éowyn side, her strike clearly did something because the sword itself shattered into shards.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen if he's already dead.
No.
The crown rolls away and then he's gone, literally. Only then do we see that his corporeal form is gone.
That's
so
true.
Clearly, I can clearly not
you can
the drink
clearly go with the Éowyn in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, obviously she's done something.
Yeah. And here's the thing, we talked about this a little bit earlier with the prophecy. They are both, strictly speaking, man and not man. Éowyn is of the race of men, but not male. Merry is male, but not of the race of men. Though, again, we know that hobbits descend from men, so they're related.
That's true.
But you don't call a hobbit a man. That would be insulting to both the hobbits and men.
That's true, yeah. So he is male, but not human, though he is hobbit, but not big folk. So, yeah, he's kind of he's kind of the thing, but not the thing in a couple of ways.
And Éowyn is kind of the thing, but not the thing. She's of the race of man, but she's not a male. So...
Right. So where did Tolkien land on this? Well, we can go to the drafts to give us a clue. So there was one previous version that had the Witch King being destroyed by one young and gallant. So not Gandalf.
No, or us, apparently.
No, certainly not.
I'm not sure we're either young or gallant.
I'm kind of young, but I'm definitely not gallant.
I might be more gallant than
more
you,
goofus.
But I'm definitely older. So
yeah. Then another draft said not by men of war or wisdom.
Yeah.
That's not really a lot of help.
No. But then later in a fair copy manuscript of the chapter The Houses of Healing, Gandalf explains, not by the hand of man was the Lord of the Nazgul doomed to fall, and in that doom placed his trust, but he was felled by a woman and with the aid of a halfling. That seems like a conclusive answer to me.
That sounds very conclusive to me.
Yeah. There's more. There's another bit in one of the early drafts. Actually, it's not even a draft. It's a timeline where he's basically outlining the notes of what's going to happen on certain dates. And At this point, the battle takes place on February 15th, not March 15th. Siege relieved by the Rohirrim and the allies of Lebanon. Gandalf comes forth and the enemy driven off. Theoden slain, and Éowyn slays the king of the Nazgul and is mortally wounded. Now,
there you go.
Message for you, sir.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. I mean, it is very clearly Merry with the assist, but it's Éowyn with the goal.
I'm trying to think of a Wayne Gretzky joke here.
I was thinking of soccer, but
there you go. Either way, I tend to think of it as Merry's sword breaking whatever protection the Witch King might have had against ordinary non-magical weapons, a protection that he clearly had. And that's what allowed Éowyn's sword to actually finish him off. What do you think?
No, I absolutely agree with that. And at the risk of tooting my own horn here, back in 2017, I wrote a Prancing Pony Pondering that was called The Moment, or What's in a Blade. And I did say that ultimately Éowyn is the one who kills the Witch King.
Yeah.
But what's most important about this is that they did it together.
Exactly.
And that they each needed the other one to be there. And
they did.
If I may, I'd like to read a short quote from that essay.
From your own essay. Yes, you may.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Nobody better to read your essay than you.
I think so.
Toot that horn, sir. Toot that horn.
All right. So I wrote, while it certainly seems that Éowyn would not have been able to kill the Witch King if Merry had not struck it first, Éowyn's courage, and also his love for her, which I've talked about earlier in the essay, gave Merry the courage he needed to strike in the first place. Without Éowyn, Merry would not have been able to attack the Witch King, Barrowblade or not. Each needed the other to be there. And I added a little bit later on in the essay, I think quite pithily, even a weapon as virtuous as Merry's Barrowblade wouldn't do much good if it wasn't wielded by one with the courage to use it against a foe too terrifying for most. It is always hearts, not swords, that defeat evil in Middle-earth.
Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you.
It is always hearts, not swords, that defeat evil in Middle-earth. I'm standing up. You can't see it right now, people. I'm standing up. I'm on my feet applauding my co-host here. That is great stuff.
Thank you so much. But no, I mean, it's important that they did it together, and the togetherness, I think, is critical. But it is absolutely Éowyn who gets the killing blow.
Yeah, 100% agree. The bag rolled away with a thud. The apron and tunic were empty. A forgetful cry went up into the shuddering air and turned into a wail. Not the mail! What does Parliament have in the bag for us tonight?
All right.
Those are getting harder to write, I'm just going to say. I'm a little worried for the rest of the season, but all right.
I know. All right. Well, Maria S. wrote in and asked, Merry sneaking up on the Witch King from behind might slightly blur the fact that he is one extremely brave hobbit. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
However, what do you think would have happened if he had simply faced his enemy? Do you think the Witch King could have broken the sword of the Dunedain like he had done with Frodo's sword from the Barrow just by lifting his hand?
Wow, that is a good question.
That is an interesting catch.
Let's first then remind ourselves about the swords we're talking about here, because some may be thinking of the ordinary swords that Aragorn distributed on Weathertop in the movie, but that is not the case at all. So for this, we're going to go back to Book 1, Chapter 8, Fog on the Barrow Downs. This is after Tom, again, for movie watchers, that's a guy you don't know. He's a really interesting character. Has saved them from the Barrow-wight. That's a really creepy character. We read this. For each of the hobbits he chose a dagger, long, leaf-shaped, and keen, of marvelous workmanship, damasked with serpent forms in red and gold. They gleamed as he drew them from their black sheaths, wrought of some strange metal, light and strong, and set with many fiery stones. He goes on to explain that these blades were forged many long years ago by men of Westernesse. They were foes of the Dark Lord, but they were overcome by the evil king of Codern Doom in the land of Angmar. Now, we'll talk more about the fate of Merry's dagger in particular next week, but what happened to Frodo's is essential for answering this question, and Shawn, you've got that.
I do, so let's go ahead and move forward to Chapter 12 of Book 1, Flight to the Ford. Here, Frodo is facing off all by himself against the Nazgul, who are telling him to come back to Mordor with them. And when he dares to defy them, and remember, this is that great moment, by Elbereth and Luthien the Fair, you shall have neither the ring nor me. The Witch King actually stands up in his stirrups and lifts his hand, and Frodo can't speak, and he can feel his heart practically beating out of his chest. And then we read, his sword broke and fell out of his shaking hand.
Yeah, with just a move. It seems pretty clear to me then that the Witch King here on the Pelennor, who by all accounts is far more powerful now than he was at the Fort of Bruin. And in fact,
that's a good
I shouldn't
point.
say by all accounts, he actually is, right? Tolkien explains that.
Yeah.
And for that little digression, I'm going to go to letter 210, which is about that awful Zimmerman script. In talking about the powers of the Nazgul, Tolkien writes, the Witch King, their leader, is more powerful in all ways than the others, but he must not yet be raised to the stature of Volume 3. At this point, it's still in Fellowship of the Ring when he's writing this.
Right.
There, put in command by Sauron, he is given an added demonic force. Okay, so he's the same guy at the Ford, but now with more demonic force. So yeah,
now with more demonic force than before.
That's right. New and improved.
Witch King
Witch King.
2. Witch King 2.0.
Well, he's at least a 1.1.
Yeah.
0.2, he's a beta,
Yeah,
He's a little buggy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's the same guy at the Ford, but with more demonic force.
Right.
Batteries not included. He'd be able to simply break Merry's sword as well as strike him frozen with fear and an inability to speak, just like he did to Frodo, with just lifting of his hand. I mean, he commands incredible powers.
Totally, yeah.
There's a part of me that wonders, when he was at the Fort of Bruin, did he sense somehow he was dealing with a dagger of Westernesse? I mean, he doesn't seem to be worried about breaking Éowyn's perfectly ordinary Rohirric sword. He just maces right on in there. Shawn, what do you think about that?
I'm imagining him coming at her with pepper spray for some reason.
A can of bear spray.
He maces her. I definitely think he's got to know that Éowyn's sword is just a plain old sword. I mean, I don't know. Does he sense the power that would come off of a barrow blade? He doesn't sense it behind him when Merry's got
so it's not a sense. Maybe it's a visual thing.
Maybe it's a visual thing. Maybe he just looks at Éowyn's sword and he can see that it doesn't have the kind of workmanship that, the blades of Westernesse
set with the fiery stones coming out of that. It's a weird metal. It's set about with all these damasked serpents and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
He maybe recognizes the workmanship and he knows that it's not the kind of sword that can hurt him. So
yeah, maybe
that to me even more underscores the significance of the fact that Merry and Éowyn are really working together here.
Boy, you're not kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if Merry were to go in there alone, the Witch King is going to pay attention to him, and he's seriously juiced, and he's going to destroy the barrow blade without it coming near him. He's definitely got some performance enhancers.
He's been taking some serious. Yeah, he's not passing any Olympic tests.
No, he is not. No, his steed
juiced.
either, actually. But but since he is actually distracted by Éowyn, who is a foe with a mundane sword, he's focused on her, and that's what allows Merry to come in with the magical attack that weakens him. So not only does Éowyn get the killing blow, but she also plays a vital role just tanking for Merry's sneak attack.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is very significant and a great catch by Maria.
Yeah, really is.
All right. Well, do we have time for one more?
We really don't, but we're going to throw it in there anyway.
Let's do it. All right.
I think we're probably, well over 2 hours at this point.
Probably.
So QH writes in, and while most of their question is actually about Gollum, and it's interesting, but not really relevant to this episode, they conclude by asking this. As the Nazgul are clearly not killed by the river near Rivendell, it is suggested that their incorporeal selves return to Mordor. Why does the Witch King die when he gets a blade through his similarly incorporeal face? I love that question. Even if he is mildly corporeal at this point, why then doesn't he become incorporeal upon death? Why should a ringwraith be more susceptible to one form of death or killing than another?
All right. I mean, and it's funny. I mean, we've talked about Merry breaking the spell and Éowyn killing the Witch King, but is he truly killed? Is he truly dead in the usual sense of that word? There's actually a letter that strongly suggests he's not.
Let me guess. He's only mostly dead.
That's right. Yeah.
Of course.
I'm getting better. Absolutely. You said it. Actually, Tolkien said it.
Yeah.
In letter 246 to Eileen Elgar, we've actually quoted this one many times before.
Oh, yeah. It's a great
letter.
It's
the one that talks about Frodo failing as the hero, but Tolkien explains that this was not a moral failure. Really, a great letter. One of the
throughout.
best.
It's a fantastic letter. Yeah,
it is. But in that letter, Tolkien's talking about a hypothetical encounter between Frodo and the Ringwraiths, on the assumption that Gollum wasn't there. And he says, the situation as between Frodo with the ring and 8 must be compared to And really, what he says after that doesn't matter, because it's the footnote after 8. What 8 is he talking about? That's what tells us what we need to know. He says the Witch King had been reduced to impotence.
Aha.
So he wasn't killed, but he was reduced to impotence in the literal sense of that word, lacking all power.
Yes, the literal sense of that word.
Yes.
Shawn, thank you.
I don't want to think about the other way.
I really don't want to think about that either. Neither does Éowyn at this particular moment.
Nope.
So, you're right. Lacking all power. That's absolutely right. And that same day in Mordor, in Book 6, Chapter 2, The Land of Shadow, we read this. That's right. Lacking all power. Now, that same day over in Mordor, in Book 6, Chapter 2, The Land of Shadow, we read this. It was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the Vale of Anduin, the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor Fields. As Frodo and Sam stood and gazed, the rim of light spread all along the line of the Ephel Duath. And then they saw a shape, moving at a great speed out of the west, at first only a black speck against the glimmering strip above the mountaintops, but growing, until it plunged like a bolt into the dark canopy and passed high above them. As it went, it set out a long, shrill cry, the voice of a Nazgul. But this cry no longer held any terror for them. It was a cry of woe and dismay, ill tidings for the Dark Tower. The Lord of the Ringwraiths had met his doom. Oh, and that's one of those things that, because that's later, you almost forget that's there, right? It's certainly not a moment we see in the films, and so it's sometimes those things don't show up in your head. But here's the thing. Only with the destruction of the One Ring 10 days later does Sauron's power over his corporeal existence, that is Sauron's power over the Witch King's corporeal existence, actually end. And his spirit then, along with the spirits of the other Nazgul, would leave the circles of the world and go where the elves know not. Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall for the conversation he'll have to have with Iluvatar?
Ooh.
Oh my.
Not going to be a good one. No. You've been a bad boy.
Very bad boy.
So yeah, just like when he and his buddies had to go back to Mordor with their invisible tail between their invisible legs after the incident at the Ford of Bruinen. Here, the Witch King isn't killed in the traditional sense of the word.
Yeah.
But awesome question. Thank you so much.
Great question. Yeah. Really, really good stuff. Well, folks, that really does wrap it up after probably the longest one since season 1. For another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast. But join us again next week when Theoden has the most poignant farewell of all time.
Oh, man. I mean, look, this one cannot be topped for me because this is my moment of the book.
Yeah.
But next week is going to be amazing, too.
It is amazing.
It's going to be right there.
I've had to practice because I keep wanting to cry in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful.
Yeah. Well, until then, folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP. That's our editor, Jordan Rennells, Barlaman, Becca Davis, social media manager, Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator, Katie McKenna, graphic artist, Megan Collins, and website guru, Phil Dean.
And speaking of the website, please be sure to visit us there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, including the one that Shawn tutored his own horn with, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch, including the really cool new chapter designs from Megan. Some spectacular stuff there.
Yeah, there really is. And you're also going to want to visit the library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, first and foremost, a podcast about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. And the PPP gets a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
We also want to thank our patrons at the Círdan's contribution tier. I'll start with May in Alaska, James in Virginia, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, and Dylan in Australia.
There's also Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaxu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, June in Ireland, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Connor in North Carolina, Keith in Alabama, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Roger in Michigan, and Shawn in New Jersey. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Very much. Thank you.
Subscribe now through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, recommendations for a good orthopedic surgeon for the Witch King's torn ACL to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com.
Or PCL, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. Or PCL, as the case may be. I think it's the unholy triad. He lost all three. Yeah. Now, if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just please be sure to still email the question to Barliman. Even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. And we'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time, despite its incredible length, to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.